Okay, we are going to call this meeting to order at 7:01. I need to pull the agenda up. So first we're going to do a roll call. Shelly is going to call everyone's names, and if you could please just say present, that would be great. Shelly?
Thanks, Talise. Pat Cannon?
Present.
Chuck Rixby?
Present.
Karen Honey? I think you're muted, Karen.
Present.
Carla McWhirter?
Present.
Liz Miller?
Present.
Talise Murray?
Present.
Fasten Sardar?
Present.
Quentin Tyler?
Present.
Shelly, can you please just confirm that we do have a quorum?
We do have a quorum, all present.
Thank you. So moving on to 1.2, approval of the agenda. Do we have, I'm going to, for the first few things, I'm just going to make the motions for simplicity's sake for records. So motion to approve today's agenda. Any seconds?
I second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
I saw everyone's mouth move. All those opposed? Okay. The agenda is approved. Moving on to approval of the minutes from March 4th, 2020. It's been quite a while, guys. Motion to approve the minutes from March 4th. Any seconds?
I'll second.
Thank you, Liz. All those in favor of approving the minutes from March 4th, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, we have approved the minutes. So now for item 1.4, due to the time that has been spent between our last meetings and because of the platform that we are using, we have had discussion around adopting a limit of public comment. So I make a motion to limit public comment to 5 minutes per community member. Any second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dawson. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? We did not hear a quorum on the vote, so we're going to do a roll call vote. All those in favor, so I'm going to go through. This is for voting on the 5-minute time limit for public comment. Dawson?
Aye.
Chuck?
Yes.
Liz?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Quentin?
Aye.
Carla? And I vote yes as well. So we have adopted a 5-minute limit. Moving on to communications. We do have 2 items of written communication. Has everyone been able to have the chance to read the written communication that was submitted on the agenda?
Yes.
Did anyone want to discuss either letter that was submitted? Lovely. Moving on. Does any members of the public wish to make a comment at this time? At this point, Nicole will be calling the last 3 digits of a phone number or the name of a person, and they would be granted their time to speak. And I yield to you, Nicole.
Thank you, Chair. Let me just get my participant list up here. We have 2 callers on the list currently. The first one is a phone number they're calling in, and the last 3 digits of their number are 333. You may now address council.
Hi, this is Chris Root. I live at 729 Sunset. Thanks for meeting. I want to start with 3 points of affirmation. First, I am delighted to see Elaine Hardy at the meeting and want to congratulate you on your new appointment. You have an important and absolutely huge job description, so thank you for taking it on. Second, I want to thank Talise for showing up at the police station with practically no notice when the Lansing protest after George Floyd's murder arrived in East Lansing. It was a pretty stressful scene, and I really appreciated your willingness to be present as chair of the HRC to see how you could be helpful in that situation. Third, I'm glad that the HRC is meeting again. This last 6 weeks has certainly demonstrated on a national scale how urgent it is to work against racism in communities across the country. And there are certainly roles that commissions like this are uniquely placed to play in this critical time. So I'm really glad you're meeting. I'm calling in specifically to address agenda item 5.2 about the resolution City Council adopted June 9 to review and revise the use of force policy of the police. I think this resolution was circulated to city governments by the My Brother's Keeper Foundation and the Obama Foundation in response to George Floyd's murder. The council passed it quickly. As far as I know, they haven't made specific plans for how to implement it. I think it's really important for us to make the best possible use of this resolution, to study and discuss use of force in our community and find ways to reduce it. The council has been pretty overwhelmed dealing with the pandemic and its public health and economic consequences, as well as trying to plan how to deal with anti-bias and anti-racism training and a whole variety of policing issues. So my thought was that the HRC could play a very helpful role to the public and to the council by assisting with the implementation of this resolution. I imagine that not every police department has the practice that the ELPD has of including in a public list of arrests a report of when force is used. So I think it's really good to take advantage of the fact that we have that information. The HRC could play a unique role by requesting that information be made available to the HRC and the council and the public about some of the specific cases in which we can see that force has been used during the past 18 months, for example, using this publicly available data. I sent each of you a spreadsheet that contains information about the incidents that occurred since January 2019 that are marked in these arrest reports as having involved use of force. This information includes the type of force used, the charged offenses, if any, whether an arrest was made, and the location of the incident. My suggestion is that the HRC consider requesting case reports and video footage of some of the cases selected from this list. You could do this by considering a motion to make such a request and then have 2 or 3 of your members select the specific cases to ask about. The HRC is uniquely positioned to do this because you have 4 years of experience reviewing complaints about police officers. So you have a sense of what questions to ask and what to look for involving an arrest or an incident. Getting this information in a timely way is important because of the council's resolution. It would be a concrete example of the HRC taking leadership and helping the public participate in an important policy discussion about policing that the council has initiated. I think it's important to move on this now and not to wait for the Oversight Commission, which will be a long, long time in the future. And I feel as though we owe it to George Floyd and the hundreds of other Black Americans who have been killed and hurt by the police to not let this moment in our nation's history fade. Thanks. I'm finished.
Thank you, Chris Root. Yeah, I personally remember we spoke a little bit last week on the phone about this, and I know a few commissioners as well has mentioned their concerns around this. We did plan to discuss it a little bit. And I don't know if anyone wanted to make a direct response or comment to this at this time.
Well, I would just say that we do have it as an agenda item and plan to discuss how we might proceed with that, Chris. So I just appreciate your comments and your suggestions, and reflecting on what you said about us being uniquely positioned to know what questions to ask, because the HRC has been doing something similar for a couple of years. So I think that's a very valid point. So, thank you.
I support adding that to the agenda.
Pat, it is our agenda item 5.2 to discuss this.
Okay, Chair, is it all right to move on to the next caller?
Yes, please.
Thank you. The next caller on the list called in with a phone number ending in 753. You may now address council.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Hi, my name is Edmund Rushton. I've been at previous HRC, and I'm really happy that you're all going to discuss kind of the next few steps in the process of bringing real, genuine criminal justice reform to East Lansing, Michigan. I think with where our conversation started, I believe excessive force, use of force in our police force is a good place to start. I would also just like to express my hope that a conversation or a dialogue can be opened with the HRC in terms of discussing maybe proposals that can be made to Ingham County Jail about the treatment of inmates in that facility. Now that we've seen the arrest of Tito and the arrest of Tony with our own eyes, I think it's very important that we not only consider how Black people are being treated on the street, but if Black people are being thrown in jail for the reasons that were listed as valid for why Tony Loggins should be thrown in jail, then we should be very concerned about who we're putting in that facility and try our best to address the needs of the people in Ingham County Jail right now. They just announced last week that they have 6 or 7 new COVID cases. So I think that should be a firm part of the discussion, I hope. And I'd also like to suggest that if we're not going to wait for the Citizen Oversight Committee, which I think is a very good idea, if we're not going to wait for this study group, which I'm not sure how much power they'll have in looking through complaints of excessive force, I think it would be very important right now for this commission to take a stand and say that the remaining 4 complaints on Officer Stevenson's record that we have not heard anything about other than there were people of color who filed the complaint. We have not opened those files, and I think it would be important for this commission to send a message to the city government that we would like those files to be made public, those complaints to be made public, or at least be investigated by the Human Rights Commission while we are awaiting the formation of this study group. So I guess, would anybody support the idea of addressing in this meeting the other 4 complaints against Officer Stevenson?
Nicole, can you pause the time as he posed the question? Thank you. Would any commissioner like to answer?
Yeah, this is Chuck Grigsby. Yeah, I really like the idea of being able to look back and be able to analyze, if you will, kind of some of those previous complaints. I know when we met, I believe, way back in January, we were having dialogue with the police chief then and Deputy Gonzalez, police chief, in regards to understanding more about the complaints that were presented to us. And we got some limited, minimal information at that time, and then we had everything happen in the way that it did. And I'd be interested to see more in regards specifically to complaints by this officer, just to understand if there is any patterns or specific things we need to be aware of when it comes to those complaints. Thank you.
Hi, this is Chairperson Murray. So I'm going to reference the meeting that Chuck just talked about. We did when the former police chief and former deputy chief came to speak to us in February, which was about 3 days before we all became aware of the Gacito case. We did leave that meeting with about 50 questions posed to the police department, and to date, we have not received those responses, and one of which was a better look into the background and other reports against the officers from that. So I do plan, now that we have started meeting again, to follow up on some of those questions and see if we can, as a body, receive our answers and be able to move forward. I do have faith in the police oversight study group, partially because we spent 18 months figuring out their mission and their task and what their charge would be here in the city of East Lansing. And we will have 2 incredible members of the HRC sitting on that study group. So I do believe that it will move forward in earnest. But I understand and I respect and appreciate your concern there. I do think that there are some things that still falls under the purview of the HRC, such as following up on those questions that we asked way back in February. And so I absolutely do think that's something that I feel comfortable with, and that is something that's pertinent for us to do as we continue to have these conversations. Is there anything else any other member of the commission would like to say?
Support what both Chuck and Talise said about following through on those complaints. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah.
I also support that. And just that was actually information we asked them ahead of time before they had met. We asked if there was a complaint from an officer to include any previous complaints from the past 5 years. So that wasn't a surprise to them going into our February meeting, and was something that had been requested ahead of time.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. But by the way, I didn't mean to diminish the value of the Oversight Committee. I think that's a great forward step. I'm just saying, while the conversation is brewing, while we have kind of a lobby starting to form with the City Council suggesting that Officer Stevenson's charges be dropped, I think it's important that we know all the facts before the city might make it, or the courts might make a decision on that. But my last question was if there was any way that we could address the fact that Officer Stevenson's charges, or if there are any charges at all, is not public information. And that kind of troubles me, because with Anthony Loggins' case, we knew the charges against him before his last name. His charges were made public before his full name was even made public. And the fact that we brought in a special prosecutor a month ago and we still don't know what the situation is, I think is troubling, to say the least. And I was wondering if there was anything the HRC could do to address that.
Nicole, can you pause the time, please? For the first half of that question, I am going to yield to Mayor Pro Tem Stevens here on the status of Officer Stevenson and any charges and everything related to that question. Mayor Tim?
Yeah, so as far as I know, I mean, that's the last update we heard, and obviously we have no control over the prosecutor's office or the attorney general's office or the special prosecutor. And I haven't received any word extra on that. I'm sorry. I would tell you if I knew anything different.
Are you still there? It seems that the number disappeared from I don't know if.
It does appear that the caller has been disconnected.
Yes. If any other commissioner had comments they would like to make, this is still being recorded, so the caller would be able to go back and hear the comments.
You hear me?
This is Quentin Tyler, and I would just say that I appreciate the comments made by the caller. I think it's important for them to keep us on our toes as commissioner, as we represent constituents of East Lansing. So I didn't look at it or view it as diminishing the responsibilities of the police oversight, just keeping us in check in terms of responsibility.
Absolutely.
Yeah, second that.
You hear me?
Commissioner, yes. Commissioner Chuck, we can hear you. You're a little faint, but we can hear you.
All right, I'll talk a little bit louder. I just want to say on a side note, I just wanted to acknowledge the last caller that called in. He's been very active in advocating in the community on behalf of people who aren't able to speak upon some of these issues themselves. And I really just appreciate the activity of that caller and his efforts in regards to getting us answers. And really, without some of his suggestions that we've had in the past, I think that we may not have had as much progress with some of the different issues we had before. So I just want to give a shout out to that caller.
And I want to point out the caller has rejoined the meeting and is back able to respond.
Say,
Yeah, sorry about that. I went through my phone just the service got knocked out for a minute. But I really appreciate that. Thank you, Chuck. Been a blessing to be able to work with all of you. And it's really good to see the progress we're making. So I'm hoping we can keep it up, and then maybe soon we can look at our incarcerated population as well. So thank you for your time.
I'd like to respond to that part of it because I responded earlier because Edmund, right, had made several really good suggestions, and I forgot to respond that I want to thank you, the caller, for bringing attention to our Ingham County prison population. I think that's very important, and I think that's absolutely something that we should put on our radar, especially in context of COVID and what's happening in prisons and jails across the country. So I think that's an excellent kind of kick in the pants to us to kind of expand our focus a little bit. And I will absolutely commit to, as a commissioner, working towards seeing what we can do about that and how we can become advocates for that as well. So thank you.
And I would like to point out that one of the letters for written communication does come from someone currently in one of the jails. We received this letter quite a while ago, so it is something that's been on our radar and that has been in communication. That letter was also forwarded to Mayor Pro Tem Aaron Stevens a couple months ago as well. So I do believe that everyone in the city is aware and is trying to figure out the best way to deal with this side of the issues that we are dealing with as well.
Sorry, just as a side note, Ed, who I believe is the caller, at that last city council meeting, I was hoping we could follow up on some of your ideas for Ingham County Jail. And maybe I missed an email, or maybe you missed, or I should have contacted you, but if you still want to follow up on that, I'm happy to have that discussion. So.
Sure. I'm setting up a meeting right now between the woman Greta, who teaches the restorative justice class at ICJ, and we're trying to get a few people who are veterans of that class who have been out of ICJ for a few varying amount of times, 6 months, a year, and 2 years, I think. But yep. We're trying to get as much knowledge on what the environment is like on the ground in there.
Yep. All right. Very familiar with the class, and happy to wait.
Sure. Yeah. I'll give you some details on what we can collect in terms of firsthand accounts.
Thank you for keeping us updated on this matter. I appreciate it. Do you have any other comments for the commission?
Nope. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicole?
Thank you. The next caller on the list is phone number ending in 660. You may now address the commission.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. This is Farhan Sheikh Kumar. I want to thank you guys for answering my call. I hope you guys have been doing well. I hope your family is doing well. My biggest focus right now is on the next police chief. And I think it is important that we pick a leader who will be tasked with restoring faith, both inside the department and among residents. I think we need a leader who will establish a clear vision, identify department goals, and develop a plan to unite us. As we know, George Lahanis has picked Larry Sparks to be the police chief before he retired. And Larry has been nothing but a disaster. And as we know, Mr. Gonzalez has worked under Larry Sparks. And I don't want George Lahanis selecting the next police chief. From what I'm seeing, he likes to pick people who's closest to him. He likes to pick people who is pretty much a yes man. And we don't need that. We don't want a yes man. As you guys know, Mr. Anthony Logan Jr.'s case happened before Tito's. But we weren't aware of that. The police department did not release that to the public. They did not release it to you guys. They did not release it to city council. So it caught everyone off guard. And for the police department to do that, I think it was reckless. I think it shows that there's no transparency here. It shows that there's no accountability. And we don't need that anymore. There needs to be accountability. There needs to be transparency. And we need the HRC, I need city council members to be heavily involved with the next hiring. We need to do external hiring. I don't think we should do internal hiring. That place needs to be cleaned up. And I don't think Mr. Gonzalez is the right person to lead this police department. I think we should consider a minority person to lead the police department, or maybe an African-American person to lead the police department. As far as Andrew Stevenson goes, the facts are there. The facts are there. The fact is he accounts for 42% of all public complaints. He has been involved in 2 back-to-back incidents where he used excessive force against 2 innocent and unarmed Black men. He's a man that has been accused of racially profiling, being biased, and to excessive force. As far as I'm concerned, Andrew Stevenson should no longer be employed. And I am very hopeful that the Attorney General will see that and she will charge him. Officer Andrew Stevenson has been nothing but a colossal danger to the community. He poses a colossal damage to the community, especially the African American community. And it is your job as the commissioners of HRC. It is your job as it is our job to protect everyone in this city. And that includes African Americans. It is time that the African American community is being represented, whether that is 8%, regardless of what the population is, whether it's 8%, 3%, but we need representation. And if I'm a Black man paying taxes in East Lansing, and I am looking at the mayor who's white, city manager white, city attorney white, most of the city council white, who's representing me? Who's speaking on behalf of me? That is a question that this city needs to answer. The leaders of the city need to answer. And I think
There are 30 seconds left.
Okay. I think this is the time to get things right. This is not a moment, it's a movement. It is a movement that can help shape the future of East Lansing. It is a movement that will prevent what happened in Minneapolis. We don't want what happened in Minneapolis happening here. And as you guys know, the officer that killed George Floyd was with the police force for 19 years. During his 19 years,
Here that is
he has
time.
okay, hold on, let me finish this. During his 19 years, he has accounted for 18 public complaints. Had someone looked at those complaints, George Floyd would be alive today. And the funny thing is, none of those 18 complaints was sustained by that police department. To me, it sounds very familiar to what's happening here in East Lansing. Officer Stevenson has
I apologize, you are out of time.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to go through this in a little bit of a more orchestrated manner here. First, for your question regarding the hiring of the city police chief and the firing of the proposed firing of Officer Stevenson, I am going to defer to Director Neumann or Mayor Pro Tem Stevens to answer the questions of those policies and protocols. So if they can please, if one of them would please answer that question.
Aaron, do you want me to start?
Sure.
Sure. So actually we had a posting up for the police chief position and we've received the applications. We were hoping to start interviews in the next couple of weeks. However, that process has been delayed because of candidate availability. So the way that works is actually the first step is we identify candidates that meet the criteria, and then we hold a panel interview of the candidates. And the panel is comprised of our DEI office administrator, Elaine Hardy, who's joining us tonight, Chief Randy Talaferro, our fire chief, member of the community, which I'm happy to say is Chuck Grigsby, a member of the MSU Police Department, and myself. Am I missing anyone? So it is a panel interview comprised of some of different voices and perspectives. That group will then select the finalists that will move forward, and the next round of interviews include interviews with several of the city council members, as well as perhaps a leadership team within the city and some employees. And
so have you had a chance to review, have you had a chance to review some of the applications, and how many of those applications were from your own police department? Like, how many candidates applied from within your police department? And another question is,
Farhan.
is Mr. Gonzalez being considered for the position?
Excuse me. We at the beginning of this meeting limited public comment to 5 minutes. So we will go through and answer all the questions that were posed during that time. We will also answer the question that you just posed there, but we do have to stick to the things that we voted on at the beginning of this meeting. I am more than happy to accept written comment. I know Mayor Pro Tem Stevens is always ready to accept written comment or communication or set up a meeting, but to respect the will of the body and the votes that we took earlier this meeting, we are going to cut off comment. And so Mayor Pro Tem Stevens, I know you didn't have a chance to respond to any of the questions yet.
Yeah, it's fine. I think the last question is just, has anybody internal been submitted an application? I haven't seen any of the applications, so I think Shelley can answer that.
Mm-hmm. Right, 0 internal applicants have applied.
Okay, that's fine. I honestly, Shelley would know more about that hiring process. I mean, I'm familiar with it, and Chuck and I have had a conversation on it beforehand when I knew that he would be the citizen. But you know, so I think Shelley already covered everything.
Can I ask a related question? I was appreciative of Farhan's comments. Was there an intentionality in reaching out to a diverse pool of applicants, like posting at the National Black Police Association or other organizations?
Yes, actually, we tried to focus on in-state candidates as a preference, as they're qualified in the state of Michigan and can kind of hit the ground running as being certified and qualified. However, we sent the job posting directly to Noble, which is the National Organization of Black Labor Law Enforcement.
I have a clarifying question, if I may.
Yes, Chuck.
So I don't think we heard the interview process fully be explained all the way through. But I'm curious to know if the council has a role to play in the interview process. I think it's important that due to the fact that the council is only responsible for, the city manager and the city attorney, this is really one chance or opportunity to really vet and have input on hiring in a way that is functional, in a way that is governed for the council to be appropriately involved. I just wanted to know, within that interview process, is the council going to be involved and really have input? Because I know Mayor Pro Tem Aaron Stevens has been heavily engaged with really a lot of aggressive change within that department. And I just would like to make sure that he would be, as well as other council members, really weighing in on that a little bit.
Sure, absolutely, Chuck. Like I was saying earlier, the second phase of the interview process is the more discrete groups meeting with the finalists. So that would be members of council, perhaps 2 groups of council, so that we don't have a quorum, that would be meeting and talking to the individual who is the 2 or 3 that are identified as finalists. So definitely the city manager takes input from all of those perspectives and all of the groups that meet with the candidates.
Was the council, Shelley, if you remember, was the last council body involved in the interview process for Chief Sparks? Was it?
Yes.
Previous? Okay.
Chairperson, I have a question.
Yes, Quentin.
Yeah, so Shelley, has the interview committee been charged or participated in any type of bias training?
I'm sorry, Quentin, what was the last part?
Has the interview committee participated in any type of bias training?
No, not as a group. We've just identified the panelists and now we've delayed the process.
So I would like to recommend that the interview committee go through some type of implicit unconscious bias training.
Yeah.
Commissioner Quinton, I appreciate that recommendation. And I think that based on some of the nods that I'm watching across the screen right now, that would be the will of the body as well if we were to take a vote. I'm going to personally say I echo the sentiments of Commissioner Quinton that we need to ensure that at every step of this process, we are being aware of our biases and aware of structural racism and historical white supremacy in the workplace. So I think that kind of training and some awareness would be really good as we move forward through this process.
Hey, and I had one comment on that, if that's okay, Chairperson.
Absolutely, Mayor Pro Tem.
And Nicole, would you mind terribly taking the timer off the screen so I can see?
Yes, please.
Folks? Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Quentin, I agree 100%. I'm in full support of that. A little bit later on the agenda during my comments, I'm going to introduce Elaine Hardy and kind of give some backstory. But we actually talked at the council meeting yesterday through a full plan of staff anti-bias, anti-racism training and a number of steps that would last around 6 months through trainings for individuals on a month-to-month basis. And I think that I think Shelley was alluding to the fact that they're, maybe not as a group they have done it, but I think that scheduling that as a group might be something that we should consider, even if the individual members would be going through that training anyway. So that makes a lot of sense.
One thing that I was thinking of is, since this process is to hire a police chief, there are specific biases and diversity, DEI initiatives and trainings that comes around policing and community engagement. And I think not only having a implicit bias training, but also having a DEI in policing training as well, so that when people are reviewing past reports and past experiences, they have that lens, both from a wider, broader equity lens, but also from a specific policing lens as well. And that's where I would say that specific body, I apologize, would need to have that DEI policing training. I saw Commissioner Chuck raise his hand.
No, if everyone's done commenting on that, I just wanted to follow with a point after that discussion.
I just have a quick clarification question, if I could ask Chairman or Chairwoman. You said that the process has been delayed because of candidate availability. Does that mean that you don't have enough applicants, or there's certain candidates that are not available for immediate interview? I just wanted some clarification on why the process has been delayed.
The second, Karen.
Okay. Thank you.
How long has the process been delayed for at this time? And how long do we plan to delay the process?
It could possibly be the end of summer. We'll reevaluate definitely in August.
Okay. Commissioner Chuck, I know you wanted to make a point.
Yeah, if everyone's done on that topic, I definitely wanted to acknowledge as well the last caller, Farhan Omar, who again is another community member who's been very active in advocating and really bringing a voice and energy to some of the issues that we're concerned about and other community members are concerned about. I just wanted to acknowledge that because I think it's important for community members to be able to have a voice and speak up. And the ones that aren't, people like Farhan Omar have came forward and done a very good job with that. So I just wanted to acknowledge that participation. Thank you.
Is there any other commissioner comment on this public comment? Seeing none, thank you, Nicole.
Thank you. The next caller on the list joined under a name, Alina Schmidt. You may now address the commission. Alina, it looks like you are muted. If you wanted to address the council, you could please unmute yourself or press Alt-A. And one more time, this is the last call for Alina Schmidt. If you would like, oh, looks like they have left the meeting. Chairperson, that is the end of the caller list for public comment.
Thank you. Seeing no more public comment, we are going to be moving on to staff reports. So first, council liaison comments, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Good to see everybody. Glad to see meeting again. So there's been a lot of things going on within the community that I'm sure everybody's aware of. You guys are going to be talking about a lot of it today, so I'll save some of my comments and stuff for questions, I guess, when we get to that point. But probably one of the most important things that I need to say today is we have an incredible person joining us on our call for the first time, although she has been to HRC meetings in the past. Our new Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Administrator, Elaine Hardy. Elaine Hardy has not only been a community leader within East Lansing, but also in the community at large. She's been the chairperson of the MLK Commission for, I want to say, over a decade. 12 years.
Sounds
12
about
years.
Right.
And I, so I always, I say that when I'm talking about Elaine, because it's a nice little like line on a resume, but truly Elaine is incredible. She's done so much for the community, and anybody that knows her knows that like her being associated with East Lansing means that we have a really good advocate for us and for the community. And I would have to say that, when you're talking about hiring somebody for a position such as diversity, equity, and inclusion, you really either have to hire somebody, if the organization is not committed to hiring somebody that's willing to work, they can hire somebody that might be make a really good press release, and we can pat ourselves on the back that we're doing it. And then you can hire somebody like Elaine, who's really going to do the work and who's going to continuously push good policies and call out indiscretion. It's going to call out things that we need to change and continuously work on this. So I couldn't be happier with having her on board, and I'll divert some of my time to let her introduce herself. So Elaine, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Chairperson, I don't get called chairman too, so I apologize. I really actually am just wanting to share that I am excited and I am honored and challenged by the work that we have ahead of us. To my core, I believe that East Lansing is uniquely positioned as a city, unlike many other cities in the country, to take on this work and make it meaningful. I did not take this position to be a box checker and take our employees through the diversity training and then be done with the diversity thing. I believe that there's an America and an East Lansing beyond diversity, where diversity is beautiful and inclusion is our life. But I believe that there is an anti-racist America and an anti-racist East Lansing. And I think that we are in a position, in a moment in our country that we can really move that forward. And so that's why I signed on. I loved being the director at the East Lansing Hannah Community Center. I enjoyed being in that position. But when this opportunity came along, I saw that it created for me an opportunity for me to do the work that's in my heart and what I have endeavored to do with the MLK Commission for the last 2 decades. And that is really to get us to that beloved community that Dr. King talked about. And we cannot become that beloved community unless we have very honest, messy, uncomfortable, and productive conversations about race and racism in this country. And I'm ready to move forward with it inside and outside of the city organization. Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine.
Thank you. Wow.
I just, I cannot speak highly enough of Elaine, and to have her on board in this role specifically is going to be something that I think that everybody is going to be really, really happy with the decision that was made to put her in it. So, so I'll divert for comments kind of on the rest of the items. If anybody has anything that's I guess not related to one of the items on the agenda that they wanted to ask me, I'm more than happy to answer right now.
I don't have anything to ask you directly, Mayor Pro Tem, but I did want to make a follow-up comment to some of the stuff that we were just talking before we got into the agenda, if I may, please. I've been here in East Lansing for about 4 years total, and I'm in the Glencairn neighborhood, and I frequently go to the Hannah Center with my family, and I met and ran into Elaine Hardy there for the first time, and I was doing some personal things in there with some video and stuff, and I got a chance to really meet her for the first time when she had a very impressive display of Dr. Martin Luther King and his work, and it was just a great testament to his legacy, if you will. And so that was my first time that I got a chance to really meet her, and you know, her involvement, being the chairperson for the commission, MLK Commission, and some of the things I've seen her do that I've attended, it's just been really impressive. So when I heard that you were going to be I want to make sure I get this right, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Administrator for East Lansing, I sent George Lahanas a text just saying that what a great move that was. And so I'm just really proud to be associated with some of the things you've been doing. And just to give a testament to, you know, really how she has, in my mind, jumped in here running is that Council Member Jesse Gregg actually brought up the point that she'd like to see Pride Week be acknowledged here in East Lansing. And she put that question off, and I think assuming that we'll kind of get this next year because we're already well within Pride Week. And they posed the question to George Lahanas and Elaine Hardy, and they were like, well, look, we can make that happen. And next thing I know, today, the Pride flag was raised here at the City Hall. And I was just really, really proud to see that. And that's just a great example of what I think she has impact for going forward, and some of the different things that will be on her agenda and her plate. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I also just want to say, because Mrs. Hardy, you did bring up something that I wanted to just acknowledge as well. Tomorrow marks the day that President Lyndon Johnson signed the 1964 Civil Rights Act into law, the most significant legislation since the Reconstruction Acts of 1867 and 1868. And, you know, right behind him when he was signing that was Dr. Martin Luther King and Jr. doing that. And without his participation and his involvement, I don't think that would have happened, and it would have not have changed the history that we do now going forward. And so I just really want to get that out there on record that that is tomorrow. That was signed into law tomorrow. And I just would like everyone just to take a mental note of that as they go about their day tomorrow. And I also wanted to lastly acknowledge Mayor Pro Tem Aaron Stevens. I know I sound like your biggest fan here today, but you know, I've been doing some different things as we have not been able to meet as a community member in East Lansing. And we've been out speaking on issues. We've been out in the streets talking with people and doing things and engaging the community. And Mayor Pro Tem Aaron Stevens has supported us. He's been out there on the ground supporting me in particular, supporting my efforts. And I just want you to know that I don't take that for granted. And I really appreciate that, because I think your involvement really sends a message that the city is really ready to engage and do some different things. And I'm appreciative of your participation. So I wanted to say thank you on that. That's all. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I really, really do. It does mean a lot. Obviously, I'm an organizer at heart, truly. So I am all for the cause. And whether I'm in an elected office or not, I'm very happy to make a couple of signs. And as some of you know, when I've been out at protests or march, I have my backpack on that's got a stapled sign to it that says, if you need a mask or water, you know, I'm happy to support, and I'm very proud to be an ally to the cause. You know, myself as a as a person of color who's experienced some discrimination, and I obviously recognize that I have a good amount of privilege in my life, and I don't mean to discount that, but you know, this is a personal issue to me, and I take it as such. So I do appreciate that, and I appreciate all the work that everybody's been doing on this. So thanks.
I would like to make just a comment about Elaine. Just one to echo, I think what everyone is thinking. You're incredible. Thank you for taking on this role. I've been able to attend the MLK luncheon for a few years now, and your grace and kindness and commitment to this cannot be overstated. And I am really excited to have you here doing this work with our City Hall and all the offices that includes, because I know that will not be an easy job for you. So thank you for taking that up. I appreciate that. And I am really excited to see what we can do to collaborating and what we can do to move East Lansing forward. I really appreciate it. And Aaron, you don't get any.
I'll just add my 2 cents worth that I've been an admirer of Elaine Hardy's from afar for many, many years. And you're an amazing example of really, to me, female empowerment. And it's just so exciting to see you in a leadership position, because you've already been doing it, you know, and now you can really, I don't know, I'm very, very excited. I've been watching all the city council meetings, and I'm just honestly thrilled about a lot of what I'm seeing unfold in East Lansing. And I think that this new position with you at the helm, Elaine, I feel great confidence and great hope. So welcome.
Yeah. I also want to just take a moment, thank you, Karen, for that, to just say thank you to our community members. This has definitely been a time where we've seen the heart of East Lansing show up and show where it is, and people are dedicated to the issues and willing to speak out and speak up on not just 1 or 2 issues, but a multitude of issues. You guys all know me. I'm always saying we got 14 protected classes here. And I've seen people talk about nearly all of them in the last couple of months, and that's incredible to see. So yeah, we're in a really great community, and I echo Elaine's belief that we can move forward in a meaningful way. So thanks. Mayor Pro Tem Stevens, is there anything else you would like to say under council liaison comment?
If anybody has any other questions for me, not related to the items on the agenda, I'm more than happy to answer. That's about it.
Seeing none, staff liaison comments. Director Neumann.
Thank you. So just to echo everyone's comments about Elaine, I'm thrilled that I get the opportunity to work with her directly, and I'm really looking forward to her pushing us as an organization to move forward, to make improvements, and just to be better. So I'm one of the lucky ones that gets to work with Elaine a lot. So that, and then secondly, just to let you know, this is kind of a positive thing as well. Yesterday, Talisa and I interviewed an applicant for the HRC Commission, and it's Crystal Davis, who has joined us at several meetings in the past.
Incredible
interview. And Erin has already asked that her appointment to HRC be placed on the next city council meeting of July 14th. So we will be a full commission in July.
For the first time in how long, guys?
Well,
Shelly.
We were full.
We were full.
Y'all know what I'm saying between, yup. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, so we met with Crystal, and it was an absolutely incredible meeting. She's an incredible woman. She also sits on the Ingham County EOC, Equal Opportunity Commission. Got it right this time. And she is doing incredible work. She's getting her master's in social work. I believe Karen knows her pretty well as well. So I'm really excited to have that addition to the commission and the new perspectives. We all work pretty well together, but it's been a little while since we had some fresh perspectives at the table, and I'm excited. And I think it'll be a great addition. So thank you.
I was going to just add my 2 cents to that one as well. I work with Crystal. We're in similar fields. So we've actually worked with families together, and she will definitely keep us on our toes. So she's going to be a great addition to our commission. And I'm really, really excited that she's been recommended for the position. So that's awesome.
Anything else, Dr. Neumann?
That is it for me. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to commissioner comments. I will start. The first thing that I want to say is it is 8 o'clock, and we currently have closed captioning going for this meeting. That is only until 10 o'clock. So for accessibility purposes, can we please be aware of that? That our closed captioning will end at 10 p.m. So for accessibility purposes, can we please be aware of that? Thank you. One thing I want to just update, this is not news to anyone. We have not had a coffee and conversation hour since February because in March, coronavirus 19 hit and public meetings were deemed dangerous. So we will not have those until public meetings are no longer deathly scary. Yep. The subcommittee on the youth conference has also not met since February, since that was an in-person conference and summit, and in-person meetings are no longer recommended by the CDC because of coronavirus 19. We will resume those subcommittee meetings when outside is no longer illegal. And so I'm not sure, I've mentioned this a little bit before, but Commissioners Chuck and Quentin will be the two HRC representatives on the Police Oversight Study Group. And so I am asking that all commissioners email any recommendations that they have as to what they would like to see introduced at that study group or what they would like to see the priorities of that study group to those two. So I want to be very clear. If Liz is going to send an email of recommendations, it should be from Liz to Chuck and Quentin. We add any more, we're at quorum, and I do not need to violate OMA, and I do not want to get FOIA'd. So any recommendations that you have, please send it to Quentin and Chuck, who will compile the things that they are sent, and we will discuss them at the next meeting. Sounds good, everyone? Great. That is all. Those are all my
comment, if I may, Chair.
Yep, one moment. Those are all my comments. Any other commissioners like to make a comment?
So if we do have that, I would love to rather have a conversation than just emails. I'm a talker, as you guys probably know, and for me to really wrap my head around it and absorb it, I really would appreciate if you do have that we could also have a discussion as well for that.
So the goal is that everyone will have a chance to sit down and sit with their thoughts and their opinions on everything, email them to you and Quentin. You guys are able to compile what has been sent to you. And in our meeting in the first week of August, you can present the spirit of the recommendations that you have been sent, and that we would be able to have a conversation around those recommendations. And so that we can have that conversation and that everyone has a chance to really sit with and thoroughly think through all their recommendations. Does that sound okay, Commissioner Chuck?
Yes, I gave you a thumbs up, but you didn't see it.
Any other member of the commission wish to make a comment? I was doing so well there, guys.
Chairperson is just Quentin, and I look forward, to joining Chuck as a part of this very important committee. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Liz?
Yeah, I just want to say, a lot has changed in the world since we met in March, and a lot hasn't changed in the world. And this commission in particular has always been aware of racism and oppression in our city and has worked to protect its citizens. I think what's changed the most is just the awareness of how systemic and entrenched these issues are. And so I've been really heartened the past few months that City Council is addressing both issues of racism and over-policing in our community. I'm thrilled with Elaine's appointment, and I hope that HRC will be an ongoing partner with Elaine and with City Council in working on these issues in the city, and that we as a commission will remain diligent on these topics as well.
Absolutely. And I like the kind way of a lot has changed in the last months. Commissioner Karen.
I just wanted to say that I think we're all really excited to kind of be meeting again and to see each other again. It was a little bit of a love fest when we first got on before we went public, with everyone being so excited to see each other. But I wanted to say that one of the really cool things I love about this commission is we've really gotten to know each other outside of the commission too. I'm like social media friends with most of you. And I just want to say that I see you all. I see everything, you know. I think Liz, who mentioned to Lise about showing up at City Hall. I've seen Chuck organizing marches and protests, and I see
Chuck is the organizer,
leading her congregation. And, you know, I'm so proud to be on this commission and to see what everyone has been doing individually in the last 3 months when we've been unable to meet, and no one has dropped the ball, you know, like we haven't been doing it as a commission, but everyone's out there doing their piece. And it's made me feel really, really proud to be a part of this commission. And I just appreciate everything that I see. And I'm sure that I'm missing things that have been happening that other commissioners have been doing, but I really appreciate it. And I, you know, feel a lot of pride in everybody on this commission.
I appreciate the love fest that's going on, because seeing as we have like 5 things related to race, I know this will not continue in 10 minutes. Yeah. So I'm appreciating it now. Commissioner Pat, I see you raised your hand. Would you like to make a comment?
Sorry, I think you're muted.
Pat, you're muted.
All good.
You're all good, Pat.
At the end of this month, on the 26th of July, that'll mark the 30th anniversary of the signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Yes.
It's a law that's been around for 30 years and obviously a very important one. And I was one of those privileged to be on the White House lawn the day that the elder President Bush signed the ADA into law. And we're not there yet in accomplishing all that was intended by the ADA, but I can recall still very vividly the words he said as he set his pen to the page to sign the ADA. He said, "May the shameful walls of exclusion come tumbling down," and went on to explain that at the heart of the ADA is the full integration of people with disabilities into all aspects of our society. While we're not there yet, we've made a lot of progress, and ask all of you to be mindful of that as July 26th approaches.
Hey, Shelley, would you mind sending an email to either Emily and CC me on it to get a resolution for that on the next council agenda?
Excellent. Absolutely.
I just want to remind the commission that at the beginning of the year, we did make a commitment that we unfortunately have not been able to fully fulfill, to recognize some of these identity-based months and issue-based months and days. And so I would, we have item 5.5 in that I would like to also talk about how we can return to that commitment that we made back in January of recognizing different groups and different advocacy-based months and days. Thank you so much for bringing that to our attention, Commissioner Pat. Commissioner Chuck, I see your hand is raised.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't think it's on the agenda, and I know I brought it up in my call with Mayor Pro Tem Stevenson regarding our HRC classification or our name. And I know that there were specific things he wanted to have happen before we kind of did that. And I know Councilmember Meadows was very supportive of that. I think the rest of the council was very supportive of that. I just wanted to get your thoughts on where you were at with that, or what you were thinking about that. I just wanted to remind you, just in case that may not be something that we were going to talk about today.
So we do have item 5.6, which talks about the proposed changes to the Relations Ordinance, which is the broader conversation that the name change would fall under. We've had this discussion starting in, forgive me, Mayor Pro Tem, I believe November, where we talked about not just changing our name, but also including different charges that in the last 18 months we have kind of institutionalized that comes out of this body, and making sure that our specific classes are as up to date and modernized as possible and as inclusive as possible, and ensuring that no language in the ordinance is discriminatory based on new education and new advances. So the name change would fall under 5.6, as is a medley of other things. But yes, that is something that we need to make sure that we address, because I am tired of people thinking that I am Shelley.
Yeah, and I mean, Chuck, I'm in full support of obviously the name change. The only reason why why that wasn't done already was really because when we had the conversation back in November about it, and really this has been my goal since I became a liaison to this commission and was even just a member, but really was to just, build up this commission into, I think, what it is now, where we're really like pushing good agendas, pushing policy points, being active in the community, and doing, I think, a lot more than previous HRCs have, although I don't discredit the work that they've done.
Thank you.
And so, I think we've gotten to a really good place with the HRC, and of course with that, like the role changes. So when we were talking about, changing just the name of the, I think the name change came in as kind of a secondary thing to, maybe talking about like, the HRC should be tasked with holding, coffee hours, for instance, or, should have a small budget allocated to sponsor events, right? That kind of thing. And so, I'm more than happy to just go forward with a name change. But I wanted to give the HRC kind of the opportunity to, have those extra changes to the role of the HRC in there as well. So
one thing that I would like that Mayor Pro Tem Stevens and I talked about before that I like to bring up is the police chief has traditionally come to us once a year with, the complaints and all of that. That is not part of the ordinance. The coffee and conversation hours that we've been doing for about a year now are not a part of our charge. Are there things that we want to institutionalize? Are we things that we want to formalize? So, there's also it's the updating of language, but I think it's also a chance for us to expand, to really put onto paper what we're doing and what this charge of this body should be outside of just the name. And I think it's a good little time to just wrap it all in one with a cute little bow. Any other commissioner would like to make a comment? All right, seeing none. Moving on to new business, item 5.1, recent developments regarding racism, specifically East Lansing Police Department and City Council.
I apologize. Did you ask what issues? What was the question? I'm sorry.
New business item 5.1, recent developments regarding racism, specifically East Lansing Police Department and East Lansing City Council.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge the fact that they have made a commitment to really, we've seen, and I've said this before, I've seen a lot of growth in people on council. I've seen the willingness from the police department to engage with the community and council in regards to some things that have been standard practice for a very long time. And I'm just, unfortunately, with George Floyd and everything that has brought to national attention to this issue, we were working on things, and you guys were working on things way before I came onto this committee. And I just really feel very optimistic about kind of really some of the changes going forward. So I really am, for the first time, excited about the commitments that have been made to really addressing some of the community issues that we have dealt with. So that's what I had to say to that.
Any other commissioner like to make a comment regarding 5.1, recent developments regarding racism in the city of East Lansing? Commissioner Pat, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, it's true. In our first public comment, we heard Chris talking about some things that she was proposing. And I thought I heard Chuck say that we wanted to add that to the agenda. And I think this is the item that I was told that was already on the agenda. So if this is the place to raise it, I hope that we as a commission will have a chance to consider the points that Chris raised in her comments and give it some serious consideration how we can advance that.
The agenda item that is germane to the comments that Chris Root made would be 5.2, so the one right after this.
Then please delay my comments until then.
Will do, Pat. Is there any other comment or discussion on agenda item 5.1? Seeing none, I have a feeling that everyone's going to want to talk about the next one. Agenda item 5.2, discuss City Council's resolution committing to action to review, engage, report, and reform policing policies in the city of East Lansing. Is there any discussion around this item? Commissioner Pat?
I don't need to repeat everything I just said, but it's still true.
So I want to just start off with something that is related to what Chris kind of introduced to us. So as we all know, we spent a long time working on and doing research on the Police Oversight Task Force, the Public Safety Oversight Task Force, the Police Oversight Committee, which is now the Police Oversight Study Group. And I think I have a good amount of faith that, did we lose somebody? My screen moved. Okay. You said what?
Chuck just had his video gone.
Oh, okay. I would like to see the study group take the lead on the things that falls under their charge. This study group was formed and recommended, and I mean, I think we've had about 50 hours talking about just this group to talk about the very specific situation of police oversight and police brutality and policing and equitable policing. And I would like to see them take up this charge and have it be one of their first actions. And when they start meeting is to start that process of transparency. And I would like to see us put in a lot. I would like to see us allow the police oversight study group, I'm getting used to the new name, work within their purview and do the things that they see is necessary to reach that, which I see this falling under. I see us as having the ability after these 18 months to defer and defer to or make recommendations to the study group. But I would really like to see this action and this request come out of that body. That being said, as always, we move at the will of the body as a whole. And I know that Commissioners Chuck and Commissioners Chuck and Karen have comments on this as well. But that is just my opinion. I would like to see the study group be able to work on their charge.
I'll comment. I agree that ultimately it should fall under the purview of the study committee. My concern is just when that's, when it's going to be formed, when they're actually going to start working. And to me, it seems very timely because the city council passed the resolution on July 9th, and it's a great resolution. It has a lot of really, really good ideas, but to me, it's almost germane to the task that they undertook with the resolution, which is to review and then recommend changes. And so I don't know how we move forward without looking back, right? And so to me, I don't necessarily see us, Chris Root talked about forwarding us all, I think it was a year and a half of a compilation of use of force incidences. And I know that every week it's published on the website, right? On the police department website, every time there's a use of force. And so to me, it's basically one step further in requesting. When I looked through it, there were a lot of things that popped out at me that I wanted to know more about. There were probably 4 or 5 different incidences where there was a use of force. It was generic. I didn't know, without looking further, we have no idea what that use of force was. We know it wasn't, they delineate between using a firearm or using a taser. Then there's the more generic category of use of force. And there were at least 4 or 5 or 6 or maybe even 7 incidences where there was a use of force, but there were no formal charges made against anyone. And that to me is concerning. Why is there use of force being made when there's not even a formal charge being made? There were a couple examples in there that had use of force related to a mental health welfare check that ended up with use of force. To me, that pops out and I say, wow, I'd like to know more about that, And so I would like to maybe kind of find a compromise in a way that we might be able to set this in motion by a formal resolution where we formally request the police department to release for now to the HRC not every, obviously not every video and every report, but maybe we form a small subcommittee or a couple people volunteer to go through and get input from other people on what we might want to delve a little bit deeper into. And maybe we could write it in the way that says until the commission is up and running, you know, the study oversight group is up and running, that this information be released to the HRC, and then we pass the torch once the oversight study group is up and running. That would be a way that I could see us moving forward on this. I'm interested in what other people think.
Yeah, and do we have a time frame at this point for this oversight study group as to when we anticipate that they are going to be able to start working?
We know that applications close the end of June. That is all the information that I have on that. I know that Director Neumann was asked to forward the names of the people, the commissioners that will be representing the HRC onto the mayor. So that has been done. So I'm assuming the same process was done for the University Student Commission as well. But other than that, that is the most that I know. Director Neumann, do you have any updated information?
Oh, that is all I know too.
Okay.
Okay, so I mean, I would make the point that until this oversight study group exists, that this is still important work and it still needs to be done. And that, you know, until this body exists, we haven't ceded that responsibility because we don't have anyone to cede it to as of yet.
Commissioner Liz, I saw your hand.
I agree with Commissioner Carla's comments, and especially because the study committee's main charge is to make recommendations for the Independent Police Oversight Commission. So really it would be the eventual commission in 1.5 to 2 years that will be doing this work. And we, HRC, previously we have talked about this continues to be our role until that commission exists. And I have been grateful for the mayor and forgive me, Mayor Pro Tem, if other people have agreed with her, of saying we are not going to wait for the study group or the commission to get up and running to address these issues in the city. So I see this very much a continuation of the work that we have already been doing, and a support to City Council for an affirmation of the work that they've committed to doing while the study group and the eventual commission get up and running.
Commissioner Dawson?
To Liz's point about affirming to what the City Council kind of adopted, it goes to the resolution they adopted in terms of reviewing and engaging the community. So I think this would be one way of actually reviewing the footage and reviewing the police force in action. And then as a form of engaging, we can go from there. So I support the idea of pursuing this.
Commissioner Pat, I see your hand is raised.
It is, and I too support what Karen first proposed and hope that we can move forward in that direction.
Commissioner Quinton?
I do too as well support. I think it's important, you know, with the current situation and climate, to have momentum in going into this, especially as a person that's potentially or going to sit on this committee. I think it's important to have to know what the community wants as well. So,
Mayor Pro Tem Stevens.
Yeah, just as a side note, yeah, Liz, 100%. I think we're all on board with taking action now and not, you know, I think that the Oversight Commission is a good thing, and God knows we've been working on that for a while now, even before some of the recent occurrences. And so, you know, we all do view that as a priority, but that doesn't mean that, you know, the work stops there and we can pat ourselves in the back for it. So happy to do that. And just as a point, I mean, you know, us as city council members, you know, obviously I've brought policy to you guys before that I think is inequitable or different things. And, you know, some of that's community driven, some of that's just because I've been reviewing policy and I think that, you know, changes need to be made. And, you know, I'm sure I'm going to be bringing some other stuff to you guys in the next few months too. But, you know, when it's community driven too, when it's coming from you guys, you know, whether or not, you know, everybody's in agreement on it or not, it's still tangible things we can do, you know. And that's really, I think what it boils down to is a lot of this conversation which is good, is, you know, recognizing the issue. But I think we've come to a point where we recognize that there's an issue, and now we're at the point where we say, okay, what's next? What's the next step? And having tangible things to do, especially if it, you know, if it's bred out of one of our commissions, you know, is something that is good for us. So, yeah.
I am hearing and appreciating the comments on the concern of the timeliness of the matter, and the fact that we don't know if the study group would be the group to take up the charge of this. So with that, the chair would entertain a motion to move forward. Aaron and your weird nods. The chair would entertain a motion to allow the HRC to take up this charge.
Are we doing, you want me to make a formal motion about requesting these records right now?
Well, you don't have to, but if we would like to move forward, someone has to make a motion.
All right, just give me 1 second. All right, so I would make a motion that as the HRC, we request information about selected incidents of use of force in the last year and a half by the East Lansing Police Department. I would make a motion that we ask the East Lansing Police Department to release selected videos and police reports that we, as the HRC, select, release them to the HRC and to the public for the intent of studying what has happened in the past and moving forward with what's the word I'm looking for? With reviewing and updating the use of force policy in the East Lansing Police Department.
I support.
Commissioner Karen, I'd like to make a friendly amendment.
Yes.
Since the main concern seems to be timeliness of this matter, and we have previously struggled to get information from the police department, I would love if you could put a time frame on when we would like to see these videos released to the public and to the HRC.
Okay, I move that within, give me an idea here, 2 weeks. Is that reasonable?
Probably before your next meeting, but I have a point of clarification. So do you have the cases that you would like to have like footage or the reports for?
I think that what I would recommend is that we make a motion that we request selected videos and leave it open, and that sometime in the next couple weeks, we either ask for a couple of volunteers from the HRC, or discuss it individually to come up with. I don't want to be the one to pick which.
So
I think so. What do you think?
What I'm hearing is you would like to have a subcommittee gather to pick the selected videos that we would like to have released to the public and to the HRC, and then those would be released within a certain time frame.
Yes, that sounds great. Do you want me to reword the whole thing again?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm just going off the cuff here. I move that the HRC request the release of specific videos and case reports related to police use of force in the last 18 months to be determined by a subcommittee of the HRC, that the ELPD release this requested information to the HRC and to the public within the next 21 days.
Ooh, she got specific. All right. I would say 21 days of the request.
Within 21 days of the request being made. Chuck looks like he might have an amendment. Chuck, is your hand up?
No, I think you got it better than I would.
Is that all right?
Director Neumann, do you have that written down?
Better, it's taped.
Oh, you're right, it is.
So just for clarification, so within that 21 days, there's going to be some volunteers from this body who are going to look at which particular cases we want to get the information from. Is that what you're talking, Vice
What
Chair?
I would say is, once we give the request, they have 21 days to get it to us.
Chuck, you remember how sometimes we have to like play motion rigmarole so we can get the things that we want done? So we have to make a motion for us to want to request it through a subcommittee, and then the subcommittee, then we have to make a motion for the subcommittee, so then we can actually have them pick the videos, and 21 days after they pick the videos and send it off to Neverland, 21 days from then, do we have to have them?
And
so
then
21 days from now, 21
That's
days
what I was
when
thinking.
the subcommittee releases it to the wild.
that's going to be made public, or that's going to be to us only, or both?
I asked for input from the rest of the commission on that.
Well, I would make a friendly amendment to like having it be public.
So her current, Commissioner Karen's current amendment, current motion does include public and HRC. All right, seeing no more friendly amendments, do I see a second on the motion as proposed by Commissioner Karen?
I second.
I support.
Thank you for that second, Commissioner Carla. We were going to do a roll call vote on this. Commissioner Thaassen.
Aye.
Commissioner Pat.
I support.
Commissioner Carla.
Aye.
Commissioner Quentin.
And support.
Commissioner Liz.
I support.
Commissioner Murray. I support. Commissioner Karen. Also, I use my last name and everyone else's first name. Commissioner Karen.
Support.
Commissioner Chuck.
Yes.
You pass unanimously. We have voted yes and approved this motion. The next motion, the chair will entertain a motion to create a subcommittee tasked with selecting the videos of said previous motion.
You want one of us to do that?
I mean, if we want the subcommittee to.
I move that we create a subcommittee of the HRC to select videos, to select incidents of police use of force in the last 18 months for further review, including videos and police reports. Is that good enough?
Can you repeat that for me, please?
Yeah, no, I don't even know what I just said. Okay. I move that the HRC form a subcommittee of, do I have to say how many people? Are we all right with just subcommittee?
Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3, no more than 3. So it's a subcommittee.
Okay. I move that that the HRC create a subcommittee of no more than 3 members to select from the report of police use of violence or use of force in the last 18 months, specific incidents. Now, let me start again. I move that the HRC form a subcommittee of no more than 3 members to determine which use of force incidents we would like to request further information, including video and case reports, to be released to us and the public for the purpose of studying police use of force in the city of East Lansing.
I support.
Is there any discussion on this? Do I see a second?
I second, Pat.
Thank you for that second, Commissioner Pat.
One thing, Chairperson. Yep. When our commission is full, it's a commission of 9, so you could technically seat 4.
My concern is that at the time of this vote, we do not have a full commission, and we will not have a full commission until the middle of this, between our July and our August meeting. And I do not want to, you guys know me in OMA, we don't,
Perfect.
I am not ready to get called by Dana Nessel. No, no.
Duly noted.
Commissioner Chuck.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just really think this is important. I think it's an important thing that we do. You know, the more that we can get the ability to be transparent and build that trust back up within the community when it comes to some of these different things is very, very important, especially as we all know with what's going on out here in our world. Just to give you a great example of how important this is and how asking for this information really makes a difference. When we think about the Gacito case, we had a lot of issues with that. And the use of force designation, they have 6 codes of the use of force that the police department utilizes. And, it's tasing, not tasing, it's, shooting, showing the gun, all these different, there's these 6 classifications. Well, interestingly enough, in the Gacito case, it was not coded. So there was no signification of what type of use of force was in there. And we all saw for our very own eyes that there was a manipulation of that. So I just really think this is really important. I think this is another tool that I think we can actually help really move forward to complement some of the different things the study committee will be doing and eventually the body who will oversee what's going on. Thank you.
So we have a second from Commissioner Pat. So we will do a roll call vote on the motion to form a subcommittee to select the videos. I'm going to go backwards this time. Commissioner Chuck.
As far as participating in the subcommittee, is that what you're asking?
No, we're voting on creating the subcommittee.
Yes.
Commissioner. Oh, Chuck, you missed when we had like the vote to be able to make a vote on something else to remove a sentence.
I remember.
Commissioner Karen, your vote.
Yes.
Commissioner Liz.
Yes.
Commissioner Talise. Yes. Commissioner Quentin.
Yes.
Commissioner Carla.
Yes.
Commissioner Pat.
Yes.
Commissioner Dawson.
Yes.
Guys, we are doing this unanimously today. Look
All
at
right.
that. All right. So now we're just going to do a regular conversation. Who wants to be on the subcommittee, guys?
I'd like to be part of it.
I would personally like to see one of the 2 people that would be on the study group also on it.
Yeah.
I think that would be good for just continuity and just to be able to take those mindsets at every step of the phase here.
Agreed.
I wouldn't mind being on it, but if there's another commissioner that would like to be on it, please speak. Liz, I saw you took yourself off of mute.
Oh, I was also gonna say I'm willing, but if somebody's passionate about it, but then I was like, Talise has that covered. I'm good.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah. I'm more than willing to be on the subcommittee, but don't want to take someone else's spot.
So right now,
I'm in the same light. I've been doing some different things already, and I just want to really appreciate and respect other commissioners having an opportunity. So I don't want to.
Absolutely.
Quentin, what do you think?
I'm the same way. I am going to be on the Oversight Committee, provide an opportunity for everybody else to be a part as well.
You
two duke it out, Chuck and Quentin. You guys got to pick one of the 2 of you at least.
We're too polite as a commission.
Yes. And I also am fine with not being on it, but.
And you are one definitive. You can't.
Okay, so I would say Talisa and I and one of our 2 representatives that you guys got to pick though. Paper, scissors. Come on, guys.
I don't mind at all, but like I said, Dr. Tyler, if it's something that
Chuck and I have to decide right now, maybe it's something he and I can discuss.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I will send an email and we will be able to formalize the members of it, but it will be under, y'all know what I'm going to say, it will be under 3 of us on the email.
Yeah. Sounds good.
You guys will finally get to have emails of 4 in a couple weeks. It'll be exciting. All right. Any other discussion on agenda item 5.2?
I'll be happy to as a subcommittee of the subcommittee. Because if you have to review too many videos, I'll be happy to assist. I just want to be of help.
Mayor Pro Tem Stevens.
I'm gonna really quickly. I want to make a comment on this, but I want to look at Shelley to make sure she just got my last email, and that sounds about right. Okay. So by by charter, I believe any council member can ask for information or documentation from any department in the city.
Yes.
Not super sure on like commission status, but I basically told Shelley that, you know, I'm in support of doing this, so I'm preemptively giving my stamp of approval to kind of like use my name as the requesting factor as well, not only from the subcommittee standpoint, but also from my office as a member of city council. So.
Wonderful, thank you. Guys, this is actually faster than I thought these would go. So I'm like really proud of us today. Any other comment on agenda item 5.2? Seeing none, we're gonna move on to 5.3. And that is discuss proposed city council draft resolution regarding temporary police complaint review process. I would like to start that off by saying this is actually something that Mayor Pro Tem Stevens and I talked about a couple months ago. And the biggest difference between the conversation that we had that was also included that I also mentioned to a few other city council members is that to me, it seems I'm trying to figure out how to word this diplomatically. I'm going to let one of you go if you have anything to say, and I'm going to write this more diplomatically than what I have it in my notes. Okay, so I figured out what I want. I am concerned about the broad language of shall include all case reports, discrimination and police. Like, to me, I want to know. So when we say complaints about racial discrimination and police misconduct, we still have not addressed what we talked about 9 months ago, that a lot of people don't know the complaint process is there, and that a lot of things exist that will never be complained about because things can occur to people that do not live permanently in the city of East Lansing. And one thing that we talked about before was if someone shows up in our jails, in our police cars, or in any interaction injured, and I got a very, very narrow view. If you get a paper cut while you are talking to our police officers, I think people should know, because we all know there's the hierarchy of power here. First off, how many people actually feel comfortable going to the police department to make a report about the police department? Also, if you are not a permanent resident of the city of East Lansing, the likelihood of you coming back to the city to make a report is not very likely. And I think that should just be the charge of that. It's that if someone is harmed, because I mean, think about it. If someone was harmed, if the requirement was someone harmed in their custody, we would have known about these cases weeks before we learned about them. It wouldn't have taken a public outcry. We would have known, oh, someone was injured, and we can look into it right then and there. And if it was you were injured because you threw yourself on the ground and they were standing 7 feet away from you, cool, we can move on. You threw yourself on the floor. But if there's any questions, if there's any concerns, if there's a pattern that can be identified 10 times faster. And this just is only about the complaints. And I mean, earlier in this meeting today, we had concerns about the complaints and concerns about the way that the citizens are able to do that. And I mean, it's in our minutes for across the last 18 months that we are concerned about people's knowledge of the complaint process and the power dynamics involved in that. And I'm done talking.
This is a policy that we talked about at a city council meeting, not yesterday, but the one before that.
Yep.
And so, you know, really, you guys can take action on this to recommend it for approval. You don't have to. You can discuss it. This is a resolution drafted by Councilmember Babcock. Mm-hmm. And you know, it's a, you know, informing and providing information to folks. And then, you know, obviously providing a recommendation from the DEI administrator and the director of human relations as well. and point 3 on there, forwarding excessive force onto the county prosecutor. I'm happy to give you my take on it. I'm also happy to just sit down and shut up and let you guys discuss. So it's all up to you.
I have comments, but I would actually really love to hear your take on it.
Yeah,
first.
I kind of want to hear your comments, Mayor Pro Tem.
So one of the first things that I thought of when I was reading it was, item number 3, when it was talking about if a complaint involves an allegation of excessive force, all complaint and video recordings, blah, 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 shall be forwarded to the county prosecutor for a determination whether criminal charges against the officer are justified. The first thing that came to my mind when I was talking about this, and something that I brought up at that council meeting, was the fact that the charges against Anthony Loggins were dropped after the county prosecutor reviewed the footage. So I had originally talked about kind of adding an addition onto that said, not just whether criminal charges against the officer are justified, but also if charges against the individual alleging the complaint should be dropped or reconsidered. That was just kind of one of my thoughts, because, the reasoning given from the county was that they didn't see the footage before, and if they had, they might not have charged, and so they were dropping. And so, my thought process was, when they're making a determination whether or not to charge somebody for something, and if in fact, based on what's happened in the past, if video footage can be used as a justification not to charge somebody, that might be another goal for sending it to them. Another thought that I had was that if they're sending it to the city council, the Human Relations Commission, the study committee, and all these people, that's like almost public. It's not like fully public, but it's basically public. So I kind of asked whether or not it should just be public. I'm not saying that's what it should be or not. I just, based on what I was reading, that was kind of
question.
That was kind of like a question that I had. Again, I didn't draft it, so I'm not speaking necessarily to a point. And then, I think the DEI admin and director of human relations providing a recommendation, to whoever is, it says chief of police, but I imagine that language will be changed to whoever's investigating the complaint. Mm-hmm. Isn't necessarily a bad thing, but Elaine was not actually on that call when we were discussing this policy, or she was on the call, she just wasn't part of the conversation. So I'd be interested to hear from her whether or not she thinks that's something that's productive.
I do have a quick clarification that you might be able to provide, Mayor Pro Tem. Outside of city council, the other groups listed are all just the directors. So it's the city manager, police chief, the director of human relations, and Elaine, the DEI administrator. Is this going to be sent? I guess I'm having the same question as you. The HRC and the study, we have a new name for this group. Study Committee on an Independent Police Oversight Commission. Y'all, we have like 12 names for the same. Wouldn't that by default make it public, because anything brought to the whole body of the HRC is public?
And I didn't really, that's why I asked the question when we were at that meeting. I don't necessarily think I got a super clear answer on that. But, again, Liz asked for what my thoughts were, and those were my thoughts when I got it. But I would actually, since Elaine is participating in this conversation, I would like to hear from her on her thoughts on that section 2 there.
So my first thought is that I believe that for the sake of protocol, that the recommendation that the HR director and myself would make would not be to the police chief, but be to the city manager, because I think that that during that meeting there was some discussion around that with the,
you're correct.
So that's the first comment that I have. And secondly, I mean, I think that when there is an issue that is brought to the attention of the HR director or whoever with regard to the performance of a police officer within his duties, that there's got to be some things that happen, right? Because we want to make sure that everyone has the appropriate due process, and keeping that information while keeping that information in a place where there is some ability to review it before it's made public to a wider group may have some value.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that in kind of the most broadest terms, the idea of transparency can happen, but I think that it needs to happen within a context that is suitable to whatever case we're having a conversation about. I know that was kind of abstract, but see if I can try to give you an example. I mean, we can even just use the case with Mr. Loggins, for example, and what kind of review that happens internally, and what that would look like with another set of eyes on that, along with the HR director, who would then make the recommendation to the city manager. So I guess those are kind of my initial thoughts on that.
My only question is that it seems that, Elaine, you and Aaron are under the assumption that it would go to the city manager, but the language I'm looking at says chief of police.
No, what she's saying is that by structure of what her position is and the director of human relations, that should be changed to
okay, yep,
city manager.
I understand that,
because they don't have a direct oversight or direct relation to
the chief of police. Yep, thank you for that clarification. Does anybody else have any comments?
I do. The timeline, I'm appreciative that City Council and Human Relations Commission are included in the reporting of this. And the timeline is such that between handing it over to City Council and potentially City Council meets quite frequently, but definitely with Human Relations Commission, we could receive it and a recommendation could be made before we even meet. And so I think some of that timeline, I would just want to hear maybe from Councilmember Babcock, what is the intention of sharing to the groups? Is it about transparency? In that case, make it public, just cut out the middle person. But Shelley, I see if, yeah. So that was just sort of my question around timelines and effectiveness of, if we're a commission that meets once a month and within 7 days of it being received, a recommendation's made. So,
Director Neumann, I saw your hand.
I think perhaps too, there may be some concerns around the issue of releasing information to the public when it's an open investigation, as well as anything that involves disciplinary, possible discipline. That's something that's handled internally as well, right? And there is the right to due process that Elaine talked about in an employment situation as well. So we've kind of got multiple things going on.
I think so. I'm listening and I'm processing, and two things that comes to mind. One, if something hits our desk that is critical, we do have our right to call an emergency meeting. We have done so in the past. If we wanted to have a full body, a full ability to vote, we could do so. I also think that it's important to remember that we as commissioners and I as the chair can meet with every other person that's listed on this document as well. So having that information sent to the body, I could then go meet with Elaine. I could go meet with Shelley, Commissioner Liz, you could go meet with Aaron. And so those.
No, she can't.
We've all had enough. So I think those those conversations and those concerns could still be transferred in that manner. But if it's something that I mean, we've done it before. We've all called Karen and myself, or back in the day, Carla and myself, saying we need to talk, we need to do this now. We always have the ability to call a special meeting or an emergency meeting, however you want to call it, to address whatever was sent. But we also do have the individual ability as commissioners to meet with the other people listed in item 1.
And so, and just to speak to Liz's last question, and I don't want to talk or speak to what Councilmember Babcock's intention was, but I will speak to what my perception of her intention was. So I want to give that caveat and say that I'm not her, so I'm not going to speak on behalf of her. But I think I think the intention really was that we've had situations that are very public in which we did not know that something had occurred, right? And we did not know that a complaint was made against the same person for a very similar thing. And I think the intention behind this is to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And I think that that's wise. How we accomplish that with due process, and again, like, you know, and I don't even know if it's a concern or not, but just like my understanding of all these bodies is really just being public bodies. And I have to say, whether this is like a bad practice or not, you know, if somebody requests information from me that I get that I know is not privileged, you know, I give it to somebody, right? If they have questions, you know, I think that I'm a member of the public more than, you know, a member of city staff. So, you know, and that's kind of my job. So that was kind of my like one caveat with asking, well, isn't this kind of just public then? But, you know, so I think that was the intention behind it. I don't know whether it fully accomplishes that, but I am supportive of that intention. I just, you know, balancing that with due process and doing it publicly. And then of course, I mean, hearing that you know, the DEI administrator, while now on the call, would be comfortable, you know, giving that recommendation to the city manager, I think is a good thing. And that was kind of a question of mine too. And this was a discussion. But yeah.
Okay, I'm wondering if we want to or need to go back to sort of this concept of, you know, in light of collective bargaining agreements and kind of what we've already alluded to in terms of, you know, anything that is going to be action against a law enforcement officer in their job. My thought is that we might want to draw a clear line between something like that where it is a disciplinary action versus, you know, if we're looking at, you know, should charges be filed against the member of the public, should charges be filed against the law enforcement officer. I'm assuming kind of on a broader scale that that's not something that's covered by a collective bargaining agreement and would not be, not have any relevance, like Shelley was talking about, you know, with potential charges and whether or not those are going to be filed. I'm wondering if that is what is going to make it easier to release these case reports and to release the video footage.
And to somewhat ask the question directly, and maybe even pile on to what Carla said. So Shelley, do you have the information to like kind of answer the question, does this go over what due process allows, understanding what the intent is behind, do changes need to be made to this to make sure that this would be okay? Would releasing this to the public be something that would violate their due process in the timeline that's laid out on this resolution?
I would definitely want to check with an employment attorney on that.
Okay.
I think it's also really important for us to get clarification on, if we're going to be asking this question, up until now, we've been functioning under the assumption that anything that is made, that is brought to the entire body of the HRC is public information. We have never brought anything to the entire body that we said was privileged. I know individual members have been granted privileged information from different bodies throughout the city, but we've never had something brought to the entire body that was considered privileged. And I think that we need to have a better understanding of what that means. So is it that things that comes to this body can be called privileged and therefore be in a closed meeting? Or is everything that is brought to the 8 or 9 members automatically considered public at that point? I need clarification on that as well.
So
Mayor Pro Tem Stevens.
Thank you. So Shelley, did you have those questions kind of down, and would you be able to get us answers to?
I can, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there
And
any?
of course, again, you guys are willing to, you can 100% recommend adoption of this pending whatever answers to questions are, or support the initiative or whatever, or you can not support the initiative. It's your prerogative.
Going off of that, any other comments or discussion on agenda item 5.3?
I mean, I just want to echo some of the same concerns that the chair had brought up in terms of, you know, this does not cover folks who are injured while in interactions with East Lansing Police Department. And I feel like that's something that I would like to see as a part of this. I think that was where that conversation originated, at least when I was involved, and I agree wholeheartedly.
I personally would like to see, I would be in support of this resolution if it was to include that amendment. If we were to see all reporting of all injuries that took place, we can make prettier wording. But that's the only place where I would feel extremely confident in supporting it as it stands now. It was really helpful to hear Elaine's comments and her comfort with it and Shelley's comfort with it. But I really do think that we need to get down to the point of, we've all talked about this. If someone was injured, someone should know. It shouldn't just stay between the officers involved and potentially one other person. People should know in our city, especially of those who are within City Hall. We need to know that someone was injured, whether that's on the street and then they were gone in the police car, or they arrived at our prison injured. We need to know. So I think I would be comfortable voting in support of this resolution with the contingency that an amendment is added for that. So that's all I have to say. Is there any other comments on agenda item 5.3? Seeing none, I'm going to ask, is there a motion to support this resolution, or would we like to move on? You guys have never been this quiet on police issues. I'm surprised.
I'd like to make a motion, but I'm not sure what that nicer language is that Talise alluded to, that we would want to be added. Does anyone else have any input?
Complaints. I mean, I think, and I'm just redoing this right now, we can say all complaints regarding racial discrimination or police misconduct, and and then comma, all incidents coded by East Lansing Police Department as involving any type of use of force, comma, and any injuries, insert word I can think of, acquired something. So like we can just kind of add a phrase.
Yeah, maybe, oh gosh, I'm still struggling with language here, but so any injuries sustained during an interaction with East Lansing Police Department.
There we go. Yep.
Got
We got there. This is what happens when we don't have time to sit and like write it out to each other. Okay, so I'm going to read it out loud. All complaints regarding racial discrimination or police misconduct, all incidents coded by the East Lansing Police Department as involving any type of use of force, and any injuries sustained during interaction with the East Lansing Police Department shall be forwarded to ...
Yeah, maybe to be more consistent with the language of the first two, maybe it's any interactions with East Lansing Police Department that result in that's still not right. Yeah, I
think you're onto something. Any interaction with the East Lansing Police Department resulting in injury to an individual,
to a public citizen, to a
public citizen. Yeah,
a citizen.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's mash the three together. Okay. This is why we work so well in front of each other. So any incidents resulting in the injury of a private citizen. Is that the end of that?
I think that's good.
Okay, so I'm gonna try it again. All complaints regarding racial discrimination or other police conduct, all incidents coded by the East Lansing Police Department as involving any type of use of force, and any incidents. I forgot what we said. I'm sorry.
Resulting in injury to a private citizen.
Resulting in injury. Resulting in injury. Wait, I think we need to. Are we just gonna? I do feel like we need to say. Do we need to say police department in that section?
The way that it's worded right now, it says it at the end of that sentence. So all complaints about racial discrimination or police misconduct, all incidents coded as use of force, and all.
Right. So what I'm saying is there's nowhere that specifies right now, because it's complaints about racial discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
If we get any complaints about racial discrimination or police misconduct, and then any incidents coded by ELPD as use of force. But when we say any private citizen injured, do we want to specify during interaction with East Lansing public safety groups? Like, do we want to say, Director Neumann, thank you.
Just one comment, perhaps eliminate the words private citizen and include individual.
Okay.
But yeah, my intent is that, this is an injury that's sustained during their interaction with ELPD or with, public safety officer, however that language needs to work. But yeah, the 3 points, we have complaints, we have incidents, and then what is the broad category of this third thing that we want to see included?
I would say public safety officer, because that would also get to the spirit of what we discussed during our 9-hour meeting. I remember that one, where we were talking about the experiences of people of color with the police department and the EMTs. So I think us saying public safety officer is a nice little way to include all of those into one. Commissioner Pat, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, I think we can say in any injury sustained by a citizen as a result of their interaction with the police department.
Do we even want to say as a result of, or do we want to say during interaction with?
Or sustained during the result of their interaction with the police.
During their interaction with the public safety official.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so does anyone remember that full sentence? Liz
I
is
would point of correction, maybe say individual versus citizen, kind of like Shelley, right?
individual. Mhm.
Just in case.
Okay, so does anyone remember the full sentence? I think I got the end of it.
The last sentence was, and any
injury
sustained during interaction with public safety, any sense. Any
injury sustained during interaction with a public safety official. So Carla didn't look too sure about that was the right phrasing, so I'm waiting because they're usually the two super on amendments.
Oh, that's struggling.
Commissioner Pat?
Just, I think we had it, any injury sustained by an individual during interaction with the police or public safety official.
There we go. You just couldn't remember what you said, Pat.
Or any, oh gosh, like we're still missing that category word. Yeah, like any injury sustained by
An individual.
By an individual during
their interaction with the police or public safety official.
I think that works.
Interaction with, I wrote it down this time. Any injury sustained by an individual during their interaction with East Lansing's public safety officials.
I think you just created the perfect country and western song.
Does it normally take this many people?
This is what happens when we can't just pass papers around to figure out what we're talking about. Okay. Carla, do you want to make your motion now?
Oh, good grief. Okay, tell that to me one more time, Talise, please.
Any injury sustained by an individual during their interaction with an East Lansing public safety official.
Period. End of story.
What she said.
Mike.
Yes, I move to support the resolution with the addition to item 1 of a third category, which includes any injuries sustained by an individual. Oh, good grief.
During their
During an interaction
with the East Lansing public safety official.
Yes.
Any second.
I second.
I support.
Thank you for that second, Commissioner Karen. We're going to do a roll call vote on that. Commissioner Thaassen.
Aye.
Commissioner Pat.
Yes.
Commissioner Quinton.
Yes.
Commissioner Karen.
Yes.
Commissioner Liz.
Yes.
Commissioner Chuck.
Yes.
Commissioner Talise. Yes. Commissioner Carla.
Yes.
Unanimous. We are doing votes real well this time, guys. All right. Is there any other discussion that we would like to have on agenda item 5.3? Seeing none, I am moving forward with the agenda. Agenda item 5.4, advocating for policy change to allow organ transplants to patients with Down syndrome and any other lifelong, physical or intellectual disabilities. So that was my request for the agenda. So I actually was reached out to by some advocates from the Down syndrome community. And Michigan is one of the few states in the Midwest that does not have policy prohibiting discrimination against people with intellectual disabilities in receiving organ transplants. And so that is one of our protected classes. And we are especially seeing how this impacts right now during COVID with the quality of life doctrines that are coming out of hospitals of you have a presumed lower quality of life because of an intellectual or physical disability. And I think as we are expanding and looking at the true role of the HRC, we are able to advocate for the protected classes as it impacts the citizens of East Lansing, not just to city council, but to any group or body that could help advocate and advance the rights of East Lansing citizens. And that would also be the state government, who would be the body to put these protections into place. Kind of for context, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Indiana, all in the Midwest, have explicit laws prohibiting this discrimination, as does about 15 other states in the US. And I think this is a very simple one and a very timely one. We're hearing reports of people being left to die during this because of their presumed lack of quality of life, which is the same principle and doctrine that is being used in many states to deny people with intellectual disabilities the ability to have an organ transplant, that the organ would do better as someone of a higher quality of life if it went to someone else. So what I put this on here for was to kind of talk to you guys about myself or Karen and myself or a group of us starting to talk to our state representative and our state senator about what we need to do to start to see some of this conversation at the state level where it would need to be, as this is one of our protected classes. And we do know that citizens of East Lansing, quite a few of us work with members of, with the community, have members of different abilities. And when I got that call, I was pretty disturbed about it, that you can be denied an organ because of an intellectual disability. And so I would like to start advocating for this policy and this issue to be talked about on the House and Senate floor. But I did not want to do that unilaterally. So I wanted to bring that up, wanted to hear the comments and the concerns and the will of the commission, and kind of wanted to see what you guys wanted to see as next steps before I just started making moves. So yes.
I just want to thank you for bringing this to my attention, because I'm just ashamed, almost ashamed and embarrassed that I didn't know this. I mean, I've been working in early childhood special ed for 20 years. This is very near and dear to my heart. Some of my favorite human beings are human beings with Down syndrome, and I had no idea that they were not protected in this. And so I fully support bringing this up as an issue and advocating for this as a commission. And I would even go further and say that maybe at our next meeting or something, we can write a formal letter. We can, some sort of formal statement from the HRC to send around to our representatives and elected officials acknowledging this. I think this is, I had no idea, and I'm really, really glad that you let me know that this was something that we lack in Michigan. So I fully support moving forward in any way on this and even formalizing it.
Commissioner Chuck, I saw you unmute yourself.
Second, what the vice chair has said. I mean, some of the information that you just said, I was unaware, and it's something that we can advocate for. It falls under our mandate. It's a no-brainer for me to get behind it. And like she said, next action step. What's next?
Yeah, I would greatly appreciate being able to have a formalized letter voted on and approved by the entire body that we would be able to present to all of the representatives representing East Lansing at varying levels. And I think that there are a variety of ways that this issue can be brought up to a variety of different officials. But yeah, I did not know this either. I know quite a few people who have had organ transplants that live with Down syndrome and did not know that they had to leave the state to do so. So yeah, is there any other comments or concerns or questions on this? So what I am taking from this is I will draft a letter that that we can discuss at our next meeting. And I will send it. What I will do is I will send it. You guys know my next spiel. I will send it to all of you in an email. But when you respond, it should have no more. It also will only have 3 people in each email that I send. Please do not make an email have more than 3 people. Guys, I really do not need Dana Nessel yelling at me. I will send a draft of that just so everyone is aware of what's going on. If there's any, and then as we move into our August meeting, we can kind of discuss that letter and move forward from there and see what we can do. I appreciate the commitment to this issue from the commission. And I think you guys all share in my shock and upset when I got that phone call.
No, I appreciate you bringing this forward to Lisa a lot. I'm gonna talk about it with my colleagues. I just don't even know if they know this. This is, I appreciate it a lot.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I am moving down the agenda to item 5.5, ways to engage the community in the age of social distancing. Isn't that a big one?
I may speak that in our special meeting that we had regarding the Casito case that you got organized for us, Chair, that there was a member from the community that had talked about the possibility of us inquiring about maybe a website, or a media site in regards to where people can go in and, now that we're doing things via Zoom, we're a little bit more accessible about the things we're doing and some of the different work that we're focusing on. But that's really still in the back of my mind as far as being able to really get information out to people and make it very accessible. And this goes into the complaint process as well and having that information available. I know we have it set up in our city website or official, way to go about that process. But I think having more access is another tool for people in the community to be able to kind of really go to a place or a page in a way that they could get involved. And I think the more people we get involved, the issues that we're mandated to tackle, the more important it is for them to be able to have that ability to have a voice. Thank you.
Chuck, are you thinking about something like, you just are giving me some ideas. I think that we probably have to have a lot more discussion about this, but I'm kind of envisioning based on what you said, maybe some sort of, and I have no idea what the limitations on this would be, but some sort of HRC, Facebook page or something where we could, we could have listings of all the, right now there's so many great like Zoom trainings and, meetings of different coalitions, and where we could kind of like have an ongoing calendar of different events relating to social justice issues, and maybe do a little summary of what happened at our meeting for, each monthly meeting, and maybe even links to, resources for parents of children to talk about race and discrimination, or just kind of like a warehouse where a lot of this information could live. Is that kind of what you're thinking of?
Yeah, I think so. You guys know I'm a dreamer. I want big things. I don't really get them when I ask for them. When it comes to some of these fantasy things like having a website and having a media page and having the ability, I know there's a lot of rules that go into play and resources that go into that sometimes are in question. But yeah, I just, since it's, we're talking about it's on the agenda, I just thought that I'd bring that back up for discussion, just kind of see with the new format that we're doing now with this and going forward, and not being able to have for now coffee hours and things where we're having engagement with the community as a commission. I just think that we need to be a little bit creative in a way to be able to have that dialogue.
Chuck, if I can just interject a little bit, I think it's a great opportunity. Yeah, so I think it's a great opportunity, but also I think the HRC has a platform. So just similar to what we're doing right now, I think, you talked about the coffee and conversations. Why not have a Zoom webinar and have it live, have it recorded?
That was going to be my recommendation.
Yeah.
You can have it on the website, and then you talk about accessibility. And to me, I think that's an excellent way to engage. We can have speakers all across the community, and it can be sponsored by the HRC. You can have something maybe Talking Tuesdays, or have a really unique name,
We're really bad at naming things here, Quentin, so maybe you could help us out. It took us like a month and a half to get coffee and conversation.
Yeah, so
It's a great idea. I love it. And we might even get better community engagement online than we did in public.
So
you never know.
One thing that I would like to see, we never did our full year. We only went to May, thankfully, because the rest of the time was scrapped of our coffee and conversation. But I would like to see us actually put something on the agenda for us to do that once a month again in a Zoom platform. And then I do think it would be, well, I mean, we can always post things. We can always have the city post things about this. But I do think it would do well to, if there are resources, like if we can compile 10 resources a month that relate to different things, I think that would be really, really good. But I also want to go back to the commitment that we made in January to recognizing and acknowledging different identity and issue-based months and days. And I think, as Commissioner Pat brought up earlier, this month is a historic month. It's the 30th anniversary of the ADA. And I think this is a really great time for us to also have like a, even if it's just a 30-minute educational conversation around what does the ADA provide you? What rights do you have granted to you by the ADA? It's also incredible timing because people got rights granted for voting. People got rights granted to education. People got rights. And I think this is a really good time for us to be able to start having not only the conversation hours, but also educational pieces as well.
Yeah.
And that's where we can start. We talked about inviting more community members to HRC meetings. And now that we're virtual, Chuck and Quentin hit on the nail, it's a little easier to bring them in, right? They don't have to show up to a meeting. And so I wonder if we could start doing that, inviting a member of community leadership for different issue-based topics to do an educational time once a month. And then we have our coffee and conversation hour once a month to have two, well, then effectively three, because we have our meetings every month. Areas of, Liz, you don't have to go to all three. It's okay. To have, you do have to come to this one though, because I don't get to hang out with you any other way now. But to kind of have the 3 different points of interaction at all different times of the month, but also to touch on different topics that we don't necessarily always have an agenda item on, but that we do recognize the 14 particular classes of the city of East Lansing.
I think some sort of educational event is a really great idea. I love the idea of a webinar. I love the idea. I think the timing of the anniversary of the ADA is really awesome and something that Pat had brought up earlier this year, and just because of everything, it hasn't been made the deal it should be. I also think, and I'm going to regret saying this because Pat already had an email drafted to you about doing something similar with Edgewood, but I think like we have the perfect leader in the community who is at the White House when it was signed, and I know has a history of disability justice and advocacy work, and would be a phenomenal discussion or interview or something or point person in that webinar. And it's it's a HRC leader, so I'm just gonna nominate for her first one. It's the end of July. It could it could be around then, and if we can make that happen, I think that would be really powerful.
I'm in support of that.
Second that.
I love it. I love it all. I'm trying to see how Pat feels about being nominated.
Liz just gave him a whole new job for the month of July.
Dr. Tyler, I didn't get a chance to hear it. Did you say something, Dr. Tyler?
I just said I was in support if Pat is willing. So.
Pat?
Yes, I am pleased and honored. Truly. But we need some consultation on what kind of format, what it would look like, and who would be invited and how.
I'd be willing to help on.
Yep, I was just going to say, yeah, I would love to follow your leadership on that, Pat, and help in any way that I can. I know a couple people, one mom in particular I'm thinking of that is now works for, she's a special education advocate. She's a mother of a child with Down syndrome, and she's amazing. She's a wealth of information. She would be a great person to invite to the table. You and I can talk about that. You know, I'll send you her name and stuff. Yeah.
Did I also hear Liz volunteer?
You did, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think between now and, you know, July 26th or a date around there, we could put together a really great, if Shelley thinks that is something that the city would support, and that we could, you know, put together a webinar discussion.
I love the idea. Can I make a recommendation? There's a documentary on Netflix right now called Crip Camp. And if you haven't seen it, it's fabulous. And it's about the history of the ADA. And I learned so much. It was honestly one of the most radical, well-organized, longest sustained protest movements in the history of this country. I was like in tears through like 75% of this. It's absolutely one of the most inspiring, incredible documentaries I've ever witnessed. And I would recommend everybody watch it on the commission, because you will learn. I learned so much about the history of the ADA that I had no idea about. And it's incredible. It is so inspiring.
Is it currently on Netflix, Karen?
Yes, currently on Netflix. The Obama administration, like we're some of the producers of it. And it's so amazing. I cannot even recommend it enough. I'm going to watch it again. I've watched it twice already. It's just absolutely fabulous. So,
Mayor Pro Tem Stevens, I have a question, because I'm hoping the answer is no, but I just want to verify before I get yelled at. I don't need to have a motion to have us do virtual coffee and conversation and educational things, do I? Okay, thank Jesus. Okay. Whew, I did not need to.
Oh wait, Shelley has something. Maybe you do.
Oh no.
Oh.
No, I was just wondering if you saw this as this type of a situation, like a Zoom panel like this?
Yes.
So
smaller, but webinar versus.
I'm thinking of two different formats. So for the educational one, panel, a lot less people talking about this, and then basically swap where public comment is. So like then at the end, people can join in and ask questions, and it's like, did you have a question?
Oh, okay.
And at the other one, the coffee and conversation is just people show up and we talk.
Yeah, so I would say, you know, hosting these meetings takes a good amount of staff time too. And obviously you've seen Nicole's down there, and she's been, you know, bringing people in and out, and they monitor kind of everything. So maybe that's my bad, because my understanding of it originally was, you know, it's actually the Pinecrest Neighborhood Association. Highly recommend reaching out to Abby Taikaki, who hosted a neighborhood meeting via Zoom. Without like any extra assistance. It was probably fairly difficult for her, but you know, just having a coffee and conversation where anybody can join in and people can exchange free thought, that's fine. But if you were to have something that would require like people being muted by an administrator, participants, and panelists, and that kind of thing,
well, you can make panelists in a regular Zoom. I think the only requirement we would have is access to the Zoom line.
And so webinars are different too. Like those are often, you don't call in by phone.
Yeah.
There you can chat during it, but it's, I don't know if the city's Zoom account has that.
No, I guess my only thing is that you guys would have to work closely with staff to set something like that up, and because there would be staff time required to both set it up and actually be there for it.
Chuck is raising his hand.
No, just very unrelated, and I apologize, but I just wanted to remind the chair of our time constraints with everything.
I was just going to make an announcement. We have 30 minutes left of our closed captioning.
So the coffee hours are one thing. I mean, that's you host a public Zoom kind of thing. You have an invite, but you know.
So Aaron, even if we wanted to do panelists, it's very simple to do that without like I do them all the time, and just like, because you can just make someone a panelist.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying that you'd have to have like either you or somebody not behind the scenes doing that. And if that was an expectation that it would be city staff, and if it wasn't an expectation, then I'm completely off base, and you guys are doing this on your own, and that's great. But if it is city staff, then
if we did the webinar style, so people, the staff requirement would be setting up the webinar. And so that is something that people register for in advance. And then it's a view only. Participants aren't seen, they don't call in, and they have the option of chatting during it or just listening or watching it. But there wouldn't be any staff requirement during the actual webinar. It's different than a Zoom call. And it's part of Zoom service. So it's pre-registered, so you know who's coming, but none of the participants are seen and or heard from. It's more like a presentation.
Maybe that's just a follow-up conversation then with you and Shelley or something to discuss specifics.
Yeah, we'll follow up. And then the coffee and conversation is literally us all just clicking a Zoom link and seeing who shows up. Great. So we will move forward with getting clarification on how we can do that. But I think that's something that we can do, and we would be able to get on the books and start moving that forward. And thank Jesus, I don't need another vote. Is there any other conversation? Because we don't do those well virtually, guys. Is there any other conversation or discussion relating to agenda item 5.5? Oh, you can tell it's getting late. Everyone's video got a little bit darker. Seeing none, we're moving on to agenda item 5.6, proposed changes to the Human Relations Ordinance. Now, I have 2 comments on this. I sent everyone lovely emails in March about this, but it was also the beginning of pandemic. And so I know that most of y'all didn't actually read my emails. It's okay, I have forgiven you. But my question is, do we believe that we can have the full discussion that we need to have with every aspect of this ordinance that we would like to see changed, updated, or modified in the 27 minutes that we have left of closed captioning?
I would be comfortable with maybe considering trying to move forward on the name change, but tabling the broader changes till next month, or tabling the whole thing till next month. I would be comfortable with that personally. Because I'd like to do due diligence. This is a very important topic, and it's late. And
any other?
I agree with the Vice Chair in regards to giving the energy that it needs as far as the ordinance and the time, and not come up with really a rush job. But I do think that the name change is very minimal as far as a decision and move forward with that. It's been something that I think is long overdue, and I don't know what would be able to stop that today based on the time frame that we have.
Nothing. I can have that on the next agenda, Chuck. I just wanted to give an opportunity for it to be more than just the name change if necessary, but I'm happy to just have that on the agenda.
I think the goal was to, when we introduced changes to the ordinance, it was an all-encompassing change where it was, these are I'm just gonna pick a random number, 86 changes we would like to see to the ordinance, instead of here's one, and then next month we're gonna give you some more. I think it would do well for us to be able to present all of them at once and say, including but not limited to the name change, these are the other things that we would like to see changed, updated, or modified in the ordinance. And that way it is just one thing sent instead of 2 things on the same topic, essentially, in 2 months.
So I'm just going to speak as a member of council. I'm gonna shoot an email off basically saying that I want to see something on the agenda on the name change. If we have 2 things, I think it'll be fine. Really, again, the name change is something that was like a side conversation after we talked about, formal changes and roles to the HRC in general. But I'm happy to just have the name change done, and then we can discuss things later if necessary.
Are we one in that being something that is important to anyone? I mean, because I know for
the name change has been discussion since before I even joined.
I know from a community standpoint and being able to have a relatable to it be a little bit more accurate to the things that we've been charged with and some of the things that this commission has picked up before my time and since I've been here, it just seems a little bit more encompassing of what we do now going forward. So if it's not something that everyone is, comfortable with, you want to work on the whole thing as one. I mean, I don't need to push it that hard if I'm the only one that feels strongly about it.
So yeah, the conversation, actually my very first meeting on the HRC, one of the agenda topics was trying to figure out how we could change our name from human relations to human rights. I think that was the first topic that I walked into. And we've all had people say, what do you do? Who are you? And I've definitely gotten emails thinking that I was Shelley, making complaints about tickets, even though that's still also not Shelley's job. But, so I think that is the one thing that that has been a discussion even longer than the police oversight is, can we change the name of the HRC to be the thing that everyone thinks it is? But with that, Mayor Pro Tem Stevens is going to bring it up. So we do not need a vote of support, but I will say this, I am going to re-forward that email. I'm going to send it again. I'm not going to forward it. I'm going to send everyone the email that talks about the things that we want to look at in the ordinance. So updating, adding, modifying, removing, checking to make sure we are not missing any protected classes that have been added since the last time the ordinance was written, and making sure that the language is as inclusive as possible. I noted there is some language regarding the LGBTQ plus community that is not the most updated language. So that is something that I'm going to be recommending. And so I'm going to send that again to everyone. And hopefully in August, we can have a full conversation and actually send out a recommendation on all those updates. Commissioner Pat, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, I think Aaron can leave this meeting knowing that we have nodding of heads consensus that we want to be the Human Rights Commission.
That's right. Definitely.
I just sent an email off about it. So hopefully.
All right. So that's that, guys. I'll send another email out, and hopefully by the time we meet again, we're no longer relations. Moving on to old business. Oh, look at us. 6.1, HRC response to recent, not so recent, MSU racial events. One thing I wanted to say, I don't know if you guys saw this, the MSU student body president joined 3 other student body presidents in the Midwest, 4 Black females, and wrote a letter regarding the way that the Big Ten has handled racial issues in the last decade. Abita is incredible. She is the first diverse student body president since Dominique, which if anyone knows who Dominique is, he's running for office and he's currently chief of staff. So that tells you how long ago Dominique was student body president.
That'd be like telling me that I'm old now because I used to work with Dom on student issues. So I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, but that's a long time in like college years. That's like 4 or 5 presidents. And then before Dom, I don't think there was one. I think Dom was the first. And so that has come up in the last few weeks, but that was something that we all agreed to carry on to our next meeting. And I know that there was some issues with MSU in January, February, and March that we wanted to discuss. I know that there was some questions that people had at the time, and so just wanted to bring that back up. But at this moment, Commissioner Pat, I see you have your hand raised.
Oh, that was from my previous hand raise, sorry.
So is there any discussion on HRC response to recent / not so recent MSU racial incidents?
I know that we've talked in the past about we've kind of had this habit of just responding individually with a letter, expressing our concern. We've talked a lot in the past about where the follow-up is. So I'm kind of thinking about, and not that we have to formalize anything, but kind of having, and we probably don't have enough time to fully really, dig into this tonight, but maybe talk about it a little bit, put it as a future agenda item about what's our policy? You know, like we send a letter out about the news at the Wharton Center, and then 4 or 5 months later, we don't really know what they've done to deal with it, what the follow-up is, you know, what are we asking of MSU? You know, do we have the authority or the ability as a commission to maybe ask for, like, I was almost thinking like a quarterly report from the Office of Equity and Inclusion or something on campus about what has happened in terms of dealing with racial incidents on campus, what has happened, so that we can just be informed and then inform the public. That was one thought I had, you know. I don't know, some of you know, if you're a Facebook friends with me, and probably it was all over Facebook about the most recent incident of that racist employee just on using his Facebook platform. I mean, that was just sick and disgusting. To me, it was a hate crime because he threatened to actually murder people. He threatened to murder Black people in this community. And I know that the university received hundreds of complaints about this. I have heard nothing back about what they're doing. The last I knew a couple of weeks ago, it was under investigation. Then I found out that 4 years ago, this same exact employee, when the city of East Lansing passed the income tax, he posted a video from a shooting range of himself with a gun in his hand, saying he was going to go out and shoot Democrats that voted for the income tax. He did not lose his job. That was 4 years ago. So, you know, like, where's the follow-up, and what role do we play in finding, you know, in facilitating conversation about this?
I think when I think of advocating with issues on MSU's campus, I view our role as empowering and uplifting the voices of students and employees of the university. There is a lot of continuous cries that comes from MSU students and employees, and I think that's a time where we can use our voice to uplift others and give a platform to those that it directly impacts, rather than step in and say we know what's best. Right. That would be my perception of our role here. Commissioner Chuck.
I agree with you 100%. I think that's part of it. And listening to the vice chair, there's been quite a few things that have happened, and there's some things that we've been able to address in the format that we have, with some letters and questions about what's going on. But it seems to me that we don't really understand their process of how they deal with complaints, how they deal with these issues. I know there's public statements by, a board chair or a president or someone of authority. And I think for me and for a lot of people in the community, I think in order to be able to advocate for change and really do what the chair has said as far as uplifting and making it a safe environment here in East Lansing for students of color or anyone, is to really understand the process of the complaint process. From what I've talked to, and I know we're going to have to probably move on with this to the next time we meet. And so I just want to say this, that I think it's really about a communication challenge, about having a contact person who we can have access to in a way to be able to say, well, we sent this in, this happened. What are you guys doing about it? Can you explain to us? And then how can we get involved in a way where we can avoid this going further? How can we get involved in a way where we can speak out and really uplift and really have that environment be something that is changing, or that culture that's changing on some of these things that keep coming up infrequently in our community that we're charged with being able to address under our mandate. So that's how I feel about it. I agree with both the vice chair and the chair about what our role is for that. But I want to take it a step further and understand this process, because when we sent that letter and we sent that we don't get anything back. And this is a bigger issue. That's something I think has been going on with MSU and our city government as far as communication, having a seat at the table when it comes to some of these decisions that are being made. And I know that's something that we got to work on, not only as our committee, but also the council needs to work on in a way. For example, like right now, this whole COVID-19 and the student body coming back and the decisions that were made. And for the first time in the council meeting this week, it really seemed like the MSU leadership and the leadership here in East Lansing really we're having a great conversation about how to combat and come together. And I just would like to see that on some of these issues that we've been dealing with before I got here and as we're going on, and the time that we haven't been able to meet. There's been some things that significantly have happened that I think that, like I said, for the sake of time, I just want to make sure that that's where I'm coming from when we talk about going forward with MSU. Thank you.
I would, at this time, I would really appreciate any comments from Commissioner Quinton, as he does have, oh, I see his hand is raised. Look at that.
Yeah, I try not to, again, I'm here to volunteer, so I'm not representing MSU. But I do want to say that, I think when we send letters out, and I don't know, being so new to the commission, are we asking for a response? In addition to that, are we asking for, an opportunity to meet and engage? I think, Chairperson Murray, if we take the approach that you said, that we're here to work with you and providing solutions for the residents and students, faculty, staff, and students at East Lansing, to me, I think that would be well received. I think also, to Chuck's point, we got to understand the process. Because, we can hear say, right? And there's three sides to every story. So it's what you see, what you hear, and also there's another side to it. So to me, I think to understand the process and how they move forward and how can we support, MSU as being the HRC as well, and the faculty, staff, and students.
Mayor Pro Tem Stevens.
Just as a follow-up to what Dr. Tyler just said, if you want to meet with people as a follow-up, you can always have people at your HRC meeting. Yesterday, council, we had people from the health department, people from the RHC there. We've had joint meetings at the DDA, the city council. If you guys want to have a discussion like as a group with individuals at MSU, that can always be productive. And you can also just do that and have people attend the meetings, which are always good. And I know that, when it comes to meeting with folks, there's accessibility issues. There's a lot of COVID concerns right now. So, if you want to actually invite them to what your formal meeting time is, you can do that as well.
And I think that's what the great thing about Zoom, right? So you just set out some time and, and invite folks.
And I will say, if it's less than quorum, you can meet outside of the formal time as well.
Just a random note of things. I didn't mention this in my council member comments, but in the interest of accessibility, I've asked like almost at every council meeting at this point that we have like Zoom call-in as an option even after COVID. Mm-hmm. Just to, touch on what Dr. Tyler just said on accessibility. I mean, I think it's great. I think it, there are always issues and there's, God bless Nicole Bartel for handling every meeting under the sun. But I do think that it opens an opportunity for some folks to participate in the government process without which they might not have been able to before.
So yeah, I was just saying that if someone is unable to come to our meeting time, or we want to meet with them before a month spans, a group of people that does not meet quorum can meet with said person, which is 3 people. Y'all should know that number because I'm gonna keep saying it. If 3 people or less wants to meet with someone, they can do that. Please, nobody go and meet with 5 of y'all at once. Please do not do that. But yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just wanted to just say to you, I've been asked by MSU to serve on a committee to help the Wharton Center with some of their diversity and equity issues. Okay. And so maybe they did not respond directly to the communication that you sent, but they did do something with regard to the incidents at the Wharton Center. Okay. And so I'm happy to, report on our progress with that group. Currently, we're only scheduled to meet quarterly, and we are not scheduled to begin our first in-person meeting until September. Okay. And so I'm happy to provide a report or whatever back to this group if you're interested in receiving that from them.
Beautiful start, and that's exactly what I'm talking about, Mrs. Hardy, as far as your value to the community and really starting. I mean, that's a great starting point for us, in my humble opinion, I should say, when I say us, but I think this is what we're talking about, and being able to have a relationship in a way that, again, someone's at the seat of the table, that we can have that via communication going back and forth about how to really advocate and support MSU in their issues, as well as support our community and make sure that our community is safe for everyone when it comes to some of the issues that have happened. So yes, thank you.
At this time, I'd like to remind everyone that we have 9 minutes of our closed captioning left. And so is there any other comments? I personally like to say, yes, Elaine, I would love to remain updated on the happenings of that board. I also think that one thing that Commissioner Quinton brought up is when we send further letters, especially when we're sending letters to the MSU administration, to be very specific in our ask of, we would like a response back, or we would like you to set up a meeting with either the commission or X person on the commission. I mean, I'm going to be honest, and we just started sending advocacy letters within the last year. This is still something that we're starting to do, and it's a newly expanded part of our role. And so this is just a learning experience that we want to be a little bit more specific when we send those letters out. But I think, I don't think I have anything else. Is there any other comment on this? Yes, Chuck?
I'm sorry, not on this. If someone has something on this, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add that, with Ms. Hardy in her role, she could definitely, if we don't have the capability to meet, maybe, even just having a one-on-one with her in her role, as DEI person, and maybe she can even provide us an update on what she hears from the administration or something along those lines. So.
Absolutely. Anything else?
Yes, outside of that, I just want to do a friendly reminder to the chair and the vice chair in regards to going back to our original conversation about getting an update on the complaints that we asked for before in the past, that the police department is supposed to be giving to us. I just want to respectfully add in that we make sure we get those complaints of a particular officer, Stevenson, or those 4 previous ones included.
That was one of our questions, yeah.
Thank you. Make sure, because I wasn't sure about that one.
Yeah, we had about 50 questions that we shot at them during that meeting. So yeah, I will definitely make sure that we follow up. So Aaron and Shelley, expect some emails.
The last thing I want to say, just real quickly, is that
I want to make sure we will follow up with that, and I'm hoping that we would get that in the same time frame of receiving the videos that the subcommittee selects and for the HRC review, so that we can kind of have that information as we're reviewing the selected videos. But yes, we will make sure, Karen and I will make sure we work to do that. Commissioner Pat, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, is Nicole still with us, or did she?
Nicole is still on the line.
I am.
Nicole, I just wanted to thank you for your expertise in helping us guide us through this technology. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicole. Hey, Nicole.
Commissioner Chuck.
Yes, I know I said a lot tonight, and this is the last thing that I'll say, and I promise that I'll end it there. But I just am really, my heart is full to be able to get back with this crew and work with you. You all are passionate about everything that you come to the table with. You're all here for different reasons that we all mesh as one. And I just really feel that it is empowering to myself and the community that we're back and doing our thing. So thank you.
Is there anything?
Chairperson Talise, I just can't let Chuck be the last person. I'll say that I appreciate seeing everybody, and I look forward to moving forward with you all. So.
We always got to start and end with a love fest. I love it. All right. Is there any other comments from commissioners, directors, mayor pro tems?
Well, Karen had lost her father recently. As a commission, I think we offer our deepest condolences to her and her family.
Thank you, Thassan. That means a lot.
Love you guys. Good to see all your faces. I'm excited to see y'all throughout the next month and at next month's meeting. Talk to you soon.
He's like, I'm leaving. Is there anybody else on this call want to make a comment? I'm not going to go through all the groups again. Seeing none.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I love you, Liz. Any second?
I second.
Thank you, Karen, for seconding. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting at 9:56, please say aye.
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 Oh, I saw all the mouths move. All right. All those opposed?
Liz, please say hi to your cat for us. I love it.
I said aye.
Oh, I'm gonna have to call Liz because I'm getting a cat next week, so I'm gonna need cat tips. So seeing none, the meeting is adjourned at 9:56. Talk to you guys soon.
Bye, everyone.